Leon realizes he's actually been reincarnated into a fantasy world. Looking around at the fancy room and the servants, it's pretty clear he landed in a wealthy family. For an orphan who died from overworking on Earth, this is a massive upgrade for a second life. On top of the wealth, his birth mother is incredibly beautiful. She smiles down at him, and Leon figures his social life in this world is already looking bright. Fast forward 3 years, and he's using a little stool just to get a glimpse of what's outside. This is his first time looking out the window at the world beyond his cradle. His eyes light up as he takes in the view. The city is huge and unlike anything he saw in his past life. His nanny bursts in, panicking that the young master is so close to the window. She quickly pulls him away, telling him how dangerous it is. Leon gives her a cheeky apology, knowing his family is part of the legendary Grand Duchy. He's the son of Grand Duke Dragonia, a high-ranking noble in the kingdom of Lionheart. At 8 years old, he finally gets his hands on a real sword. He's hyped to start training, thinking he'll be using sword chi and aura in no time. His teacher is Sir Gothic, a holy knight sent directly from the royal palace. Sir Gothic seems friendly enough, saying he's honored to teach the young noble. Leon is a bit confused about what being a holy knight actually means. 6 years later, Leon is 14 and absolutely hates his life. Sir Gothic turns out to be a monster, making Leon pull massive boulders for laps. Sparring is even worse. Leon can barely keep up with his master's speed. To truly become a holy knight, he has to be chosen by the Holy Grail and drink holy water. Sir Gothic towers over him, looking more like a demon than a holy man. Leon catches a heavy strike from his master, who tells him to keep his eyes on his opponent. Leon collapses in the dirt, exhausted, and wishing for any god to just end his misery. To prove his faith to the goddess, he eventually leaves home to roam the world on a quest. He ends up facing down a literal army of monsters. He cuts through an orc, finally putting all that brutal training to use. At age 20, he finally comes face to face with the goddess Ariana. He kneels before her and accepts her order to prove his honor. After years of slaving away, Leon officially becomes a holy knight. He rises through the ranks to become a war knight, famously wiping out 700,000 orcs. Meanwhile, the legendary King Arjun Majesty Lionheart dies fighting an archdemon. Amidst the chaos of the war, Goddess Ariana descends and chooses Leon to lead. He's granted the Lionheart sacred treasure and vows to protect the Holy Grail. This is how the former orphan became the head of the Dragonia family. He's officially crowned as the new king of the Lionheart Kingdom. His reign is marked by constant battle, including 3 massive wars against the orcs. His knights show him total respect, but the situation with the Empire is getting worse. Reports come in that the Empire has started using dark magic experiments. The Empire goes full cult mode, sacrificing 3 million of its own citizens in a mass suicide. All that death is used to summon the Lord of Chaos right into the heart of the capital. Leon gathers his surviving knights and prepares to march on the Empire for one last stand. Despite his best efforts, the world continues to fall apart around them. He vowed to use every bit of holiness on the continent to wipe out evil, but the devastation was absolute. Surrounded by the fallen, Leon kneels on the blood-soaked earth, mourning his loss. He holds his dying comrade, Sir Arin, telling the brave knight to be proud of what he's done. With a final, weak response, the knight passes away to join the feast of the gods. Leon calls out to the remaining youths and knights, the last embers of resistance in a dying world. He lets out a primal roar, commanding them to keep their rage burning eternally. A child's doll lies abandoned in the dirt, a silent reminder of those who were deceived by a false victory. He reminds his troops that as long as they hold on to their honor, they haven't truly lost yet. With a massive swing of his glowing blade, Leon cuts through the darkness. Atop his white steed, the king leads the charge for the glory of the goddess. Under a tattered banner, the promise of the goddess feels like the only thing keeping them going. Leon screams for every soldier to give their all in this final, desperate charge. They were up against billions of devils that covered the earth as far as the eye could see. It was a brutal meat grinder where slaves and civilians died with honor alongside the glorious knights. As the chosen agent of the gods, Leon slashes through the heart of the demonic horde. One by one, his comrades fell, until he was the only one left fighting the demons. Alone for centuries, he personally tore apart countless demon lords and archdemons. He showed the monsters the true, terrifying power of a holy knight's wrath. 217 years into the war, and the winter still hadn't ended. By the 256th year, he finally smashes the last remaining demon gate. With the gates gone, the remaining demons had absolutely nowhere left to hide. Leon wasn't the one who was stuck. The demons were trapped in this world with him. The monsters finally realized that the man in front of them was far more terrifying than they ever were. 300 years of relentless slaughter pass in a blur of blood and light. Suddenly, a portal of light opens up, leaving the survivors of a modern-day dungeon in total shock. An archdemon that had been terrorizing them is decapitated in a single, effortless stroke. Emerging from a divine glow, the man tells the survivors to rise and keep fighting. Hanhari can only stare in disbelief, asking the glowing figure who he is. Standing amidst the wreckage of the monster he just annihilated, he identifies himself as King Lionheart. He is the last agent of the Holy Temples, carrying the will of a world that no longer exists. Leon Dragonia Lionheart stands revealed, radiating a power unlike anything they've ever seen. Hanhari is completely speechless as the man mentions his 300-year crusade. A system message appears, confirming that every last demon has finally been defeated. Sol just got hit with a gate right in the middle of the city. It's an unidentifiable black rank, so all the big guilds chickened out. The government ended up sending in the Korean Hunter Association, which was basically a death sentence. But inside that hellhole, they found something they didn't expect. Associate Manager Hanhari couldn't believe her eyes. Her boss, Kim Jin-soo, asks if she's okay, but she's still reeling from what she saw. Back at HQ, the higher-ups are having a hard time swallowing the report. Clearing a black-ranked demon gate with a great devil inside without any help sounds like a joke. But apparently, it was all because of this one man. These gates usually lead to worlds that are either dying or already trashed. Sometimes survivors make it back to Earth with insane powers they picked up in the demon realm, and Leon Dragonia Lionheart looks like he walked straight out of a medieval legend. The government immediately started making plans to scout these survivors. They realized they need Leon on their side, no matter what it takes, especially since he supposedly one-shot a great devil that would have killed an A-rank hunter. He didn't just win, it was a total slaughter. He completely overwhelmed a monster that should have been unstoppable. But Jinsu is more worried about the cultural difference between a king and a modern office. Hari tries to be optimistic, thinking Leon is probably a decent guy, deep down. She says she could hear it in his voice, right before he started screaming at them. He literally shattered the monster-proof glass in the interrogation room. The staff are losing their minds, as the specialized glass turns into confetti. Leon is fuming, demanding to know how they dare insult his family name. Hari's good person theory is looking a little shaky right now. Rewind 15 minutes to before the glass exploded. Leon is sitting there, feeling like a complete stranger in his own home. Before he was a king, he was just an orphan who worked himself to death in his 20s. Then, he spent 300 years fighting demons in another world. After all that time, he's just glad he remembers anything about Earth at all. The examiner tries to start the meeting professionally. Leon immediately shuts that down, telling the peasant to address him as, "Your Majesty." Surprisingly, the guy just rolls with it. Leon's not sure if the guy's actually nice, or if the government is just scared of him. The guy asks if he really killed all those demons by himself. Leon confirms it, and then decides to promote the guy to his temporary secretary. He tells him he's lucky to be allowed to record this glorious incident. Then, he basically tells him he's hungry, but in the most stuck-up way possible. He needs to eat and find out exactly what happened to Earth while he was gone. The examiner explains that the nightmare started 30 years ago. Gates opened everywhere, and monsters started pouring out. They eventually learned that if a gate isn't cleared, it causes a dungeon break and a full-scale invasion. Leon notices a weird difference between his old world and this one. Back home, demons just swarmed everything. But here, the gates actually have rules and rewards. It's almost like the gates are designed to force humans to get stronger through these weird trials. His thoughts are interrupted when the examiner walks in with a steaming tray of food. He sets it down right in front of Leon, who just stares at the bowl for a second. It's a classic bowl of seollyeongtang, complete with the bone broth and a side of kimchi. A memory of his past life flashes through his mind back when he was just a broke laborer. This stuff was the only thing that kept him going. He asks what it is, and the guy politely explains it's just some simple oxbone soup. That's when Leon's king ego kicks in, realizing this is basically commoner food. He slams the table so hard, the room shakes, screaming about how they just insulted the entire Lionheart legacy. He gets right in the guy's face, demanding to know why they'd serve peasant food to a literal royal like him, cutting into a perfectly cooked, juicy steak. Leon is enjoying a high-end meal, while the government suits watch him from the sidelines. The official tells Hanhari to handle the talking, since Leon seems more interested in her. She's internally screaming about having to use old-fashioned formal language. Hari is a nervous wreck, because the only compliment she's managed to get out of him so far is that she's brave. She peeks into the dining room, apologizing for interrupting his steak dinner. Leon wipes his mouth and recognizes her as a swordsman from the dungeon. He tells her to take a seat, which honestly makes her day. She asks if he liked the meal, and he gives a rare bit of praise for the chef's sincerity. Then, the mood shifts. He asks if those wicked things the demons have really appeared on this earth. Hari confirms it, while focusing on her main mission, getting him to join the Hunter Association. It's the only reason she's there in the first place. She tries to sell him on the government looking after him if he just gives them his permission. It's a scouting war. The government is desperate to stop powerful survivors from jumping ship to other countries. Leon agrees that as long as he's in this world, it's his duty to head to the battlefield. But there's a catch. A king isn't going to be some soldier for another nation. He's going to build his own knight's order. Hari can't even argue with that logic, so she just nods. Suddenly, alarms start blaring all over the building. An urgent message pops up. A dungeon break is happening at the Honam Plains. Section Chief Kim realizes if the granary gets hit, food production for the whole country will grind to a halt. They have an S-rank hunter, Lee Yongwan, on the scene at the Orange Gate. Leon overhears everything through the door and realizes the government guys are in serious trouble. He looks at his hand, noticing this world lacks the divine presence he's used to. Leon starts glowing with white light as he reaches out to a familiar companion. He calls upon Demera, and a brilliant bolt of light hits the floor. A small, hooded figure appears in the middle of the flash. Out at the plains, a massive, swirling orange portal is tearing through the crops. Lee Yangwan just stands there looking smug while the association people demand to know what's going on. He spots Section Chief Kim and Hari arriving on the scene. Kim is fuming, realizing this bastard purposely let the dungeon break happen. The Phoenix Guild has been trying to blackmail the government for a massive tax exemption on their profits. They're willing to let the land get ruined just because their greedy request got rejected. Hari screams at him to close the gate immediately. Lee just makes up some BS about his members being too injured to raid. He tells them they might try tomorrow, completely mocking their plea for patriotism. In this new world, justice is just another word for money and power. That's when a voice from the shadows calls him out for being shallow and old-fashioned. Leon walks right up to the group, much to Hari's shock. She tries to say his name, but he shuts her down, telling her not to speak it so lightly. Lee Yongwan is annoyed, calling him some random Westerner, but Leon just tells him to be quiet. Leon's eyes glow as he asks how such a lowly person dares to even speak to him. Lee is absolutely losing it. He's an S-rank hunter and a guildmaster. He doesn't take insults from anyone. He charges up a fireball, ready to blow, while Hari desperately tries to get everyone to stop. Lee Yongwan is stunned. He realizes Leon isn't just some Westerner, he's a survivor from a gate. He does a complete 180 and introduces himself with a polite bow, trying to play nice now that he knows Leon is powerful. But Leon isn't buying the act. He shuts him down immediately, saying a king doesn't repeat himself. He demands a summary of the situation, since he doesn't know how gates work in this world. The government people are just relieved he's actually willing to step in and help. Hanhari explains the stakes. A dungeon break infects the land with demonic energy, making it impossible to grow crops. Since the Honam Plains is the country's main granary, this is a national emergency. Leon asks for the solution. Hari says they need to purify the infection and shut down the gate for good. Leon tells them to get their forces ready and call back whoever they need. He announces that he'll be handling this personally while staring down the massive orange portal. But then he drops a weird requirement. He says he needs permission from this nation's king first. The government agents are at a loss, trying to explain that they have laws and a process for this kind of thing. Even Lee Yongwan thinks Leon has completely lost his mind, calling him worse than himself. In the end, they actually make the call to the president to get the final okay. Leon had two very specific requests. The first was a simple straw doll, which Hari is holding on to. The second was even more bizarre. The doll had to be handmade specifically by women who had already given birth. A crowd of mothers gathers, and Leon begins a very thorough inspection of their work. One woman is confused when he rejects her doll immediately. He's looking for something very specific. He's picky, calling the rejected ones metaphysical eccentric bodies instead of actual dolls. He tosses one that looks like a chicken and gives it a hard fail. He goes through dozens of them, but none are good enough for the ritual he has in mind. Finally, an old grandmother presents her doll, and it finally catches his eye. When she says she's given birth to 12 children, Leon is genuinely impressed, calling her a patriot. He gives the old lady a regal hand kiss, which leaves her blushing. He places her doll on a ritual table right in the middle of the infected field. With the conditions finally met, Leon starts the ritual, a magic circle glowing under his hand. A golden holy grail materializes out of nowhere, glowing with a bright blue light. Leon prays to the mother of this land, offering the doll as a vessel. A massive pillar of light shoots into the sky, illuminating the whole area. Hari watches in awe as the empty cup begins to fill itself with water. The light gets even more intense, looking like a second sun is rising over the plains. Magical water droplets begin to flow out of the grail and soak into the straw doll. Lee and his guild can't believe their eyes, as the little doll actually stands up and starts moving. A soft voice calls out to Leon, calling him, "My child." Leon bows his head in respect, greeting the presence of Mother Earth. The doll transforms into a small girl, Demera, the god of life and abundance, who's happy to see him again. Divinity had descended on this land. Demera, the god of life and abundance, watches as her new land is swallowed by evil. Leon Dragonia Lionheart notes that while the land is crawling with monsters, there is a complete lack of divinity. He looks back at Gu Daisung and the other hunters, calling them nothing but vulgar swines. Leon kneels before the tiny goddess, asking her for guidance in this strange world. He explains that true authority is divine, something these commoners wouldn't understand. Leon pledges to show the ignorant the right path and restore the balance between duty and power. He prays for the goddess to heal the earth and cleanse the evil energy plaguing its citizens. To make it happen, he offers his own power to substitute for the thirsty earth. Suddenly, a massive pillar of divine energy blasts into the sky. Leon shouts for the others to watch and learn as he reshapes the world before their eyes. In the blink of an eye, the barren wasteland is transformed into a massive field of golden rice. Leon stands tall amidst the harvest, claiming this is proof of an eternal promise. Gude-sung is floored, staring at the grain in total disbelief. He immediately tries to convince the crew not to touch it, claiming crops grown with magic are poisonous. Leon just looks at him like he's an absolute idiot, offended that he judged divine food so poorly. A mysterious voice warns Daesung not to insult the goddess with his light tongue. Daesung is fuming, his face twitching with pure rage. He realizes this miracle is about to wreck his entire plan to lead the newbies. Desperate to save face, he decides to frame Leon as a con artist. Daesung calls over an appraiser to debunk the fake harvest. The appraiser activates his skill to analyze the energy coming from the field. The system window pops up, confirming it's a rare rank item called Blessed Rice. The appraiser completely loses it, screaming that this stuff can cure pretty much every disease. Hearing that, the team manager immediately sends someone to find a giant cooking pot. They set up a stove and start a fire right there in the dirt. The manager takes his first bite, and his mind is completely blown by the taste. It's basically the ultimate buff, granting huge boosts to stamina and mana recovery. Shin Nayeon is already shoveling it in, trying to explain how big of a deal this is to the manager. She mentions that she even ate a bug from the field just because she was curious. The manager is shocked to find out the divine pests give you a buff too. Now everyone's sprinting through the fields like crazy, trying to catch insects for the extra stats. Leon watches the madness from a distance, satisfied with the results. He kneels one last time, thanking the goddess for her divine love and protection. Demera smiles warmly, reminding him to make sure he feeds himself too. Leon tells the Earthlings to keep the importance of divine power in mind. With everyone maxed out on buffs, the portal to the dungeon finally opens up. Daesung is still stewing, wondering where this survivor bastard even came from. As the group marches toward the gate, he secretly wishes Leon would just drop dead inside. Suddenly, a dark thought clicks in his head, and he stops in his tracks. He gets a nasty smirk, deciding to make sure that his wish for Leon's death comes true. Gu Daesung smirks, reasoning that with Hanhari as their only A rank, Leon is likely just a weak blessing type buffer. He's convinced the guy is absolute trash when it comes to actual combat. He lets out a twisted grin, already certain that the group is going to fail miserably. He's practically relishing the thought of Leon's demise. However, a much bigger problem is waiting for them inside the gate. A massive, dark-armored monster starts to reveal itself from the shadows. It's a terrifying knight on horseback, draped in black armor and blue flames. This is a monster that ordinary hunters don't stand a chance against. A squad of hunters led by Section Chief Kim heads into the gate, thinking they've got a handle on the situation. They find a lone skeleton on the ground, but things aren't exactly going as planned. Hanhari checks the status bar and notices something weird: the monster count isn't dropping at all. Turns out, these skeletons just keep coming back as long as their leader is still standing. Leon watches the chaos unfold with a bored look, completely unfazed by the infinite army rising before him. Suddenly, a bright red notification flashes in front of Hanhari's eyes. A dungeon break warning pops up. The commander knight, Dullahan, is advancing with his troops. Glowing purple runes trap the hunters as the dungeon's rules shift into something much more dangerous. Section Chief Kim grit his teeth, cursing someone named Lee Yongwan for not warning them about this. An endless tide of skeletons marches out from the shadows, led by a massive knight on horseback. The numbers are overwhelming, and the panic starts to set in as the recruits ask if they should use their potions. One of the hunters reports 30 archers and 2 mages backing up the enemy front line. Kim takes charge, ordering anyone with a shield to step forward and stop the advance. He tries to rally the group, even though he knows they're in way over their heads. He slams into the first wave with a shout, trying to hold back the tide. The skeletons are hitting way harder than any D-rank monster should ever be able to. Kim realizes that orange gates really are on a whole different level of difficulty. Up above, the skeleton mages finish their incantation and prepare to rain magic down on the group. Kim shouts at the top of his lungs, trying to draw all the attention away from the rookies. A massive beam of energy carves through the air, hitting with incredible force. He takes the hit head on, brushing it off as just a little sting to keep the others from panicking. That's when the boss finally makes his grand entrance in a swirl of blue fire. It's the Dullahan, a headless knight that looks like a literal nightmare come to life. Kim stands his ground, but the pressure coming off this thing is terrifying. With one strike, The boss sends a massive shockwave that tears through the ground. Kim is sent flying back, his shield cracked and his body hitting the dirt hard. The support team is panicking, asking Hanhari if it's time to send in the reserve forces. Hanhari knows they don't have a choice, the hunters up front are being slaughtered. Shin Nayeon begs Leon to help, but he just gives her a cold, empty look. He stays silent, looking completely bored by the desperate situation. Leon calmly explains that a king should never bother with such a small battle. He actually has the nerve to say it's an insult to the goddess to even watch this mess. Hanhari can't believe what she's hearing while people are literally dying in front of them. She realizes she's on her own, and decides she's seen enough of his arrogance. She draws her sword, announcing that she'll handle the boss herself. In a flash of speed, she lunges forward into the fray. She weaves through the skeleton mob, her eyes locked on the horseman. She uses a skeleton skull as a stepping stone to vault high into the air. She brings her blade down with everything she's got, aiming straight for the kill. Sparks fly as a Dullahan blocks her strike with effortless precision. She clicks her tongue in frustration, realizing her opening move didn't do a thing. But as she gets close, something about the boss makes her stop in her tracks. The Dullahan catches Hanhari off guard by using its severed head to block her view. She's shocked that a mindless undead would use such a clever trick in combat. She tries to land another blow, but the horseman is much more agile than he looks. Despite the weird head toss, she manages to push the boss away, separating him from the rest of the skeleton horde. Knowing she needs to go all out, Hanhari warns the others that her skill's range is way too big for close support. A massive pillar of fire erupts, completely engulfing the battlefield in a blinding explosion. She stares into the flames, hoping that a hit that massive was enough to finally take the boss down. But as the smoke clears, she sees something impossible. The Dullahan deflected the entire blast with the blunt side of its blade. It didn't take a single scratch, showing a level of sword mastery that shouldn't belong to a monster. Hanhari looks completely drained, realizing she's hitting a wall she can't climb. Suddenly, the sound of slow clapping echoes through the area. Leon is actually applauding the boss's technique. Leon offers a formal apology, admitting he was wrong to call the Dullahan a mere undead when it clearly has the spirit of a noble warrior. He steps forward and identifies himself as the King of the Lion Heart, granting the unknown knight the honor of a challenge. Leon walks calmly into the center of the fight, telling the others to step back so no one else gets hurt during their duel. Hanhari and the recruits can only watch in shock as this random nobody challenges a boss monster to a one-on-one. The Dullahan stops its attack and faces him, its glowing eyes full of interest. Leon just smirks. His provocation worked perfectly. Leon stands before a massive magic circle, his hand outstretched as power pulses from the ground. A giant Dullahan looms over the group, its spectral head burning with blue fire as it grips a massive sword. Neon panics, warning everyone that this thing won't die unless its head is taken off. Leon just looks bored, asking if that's supposed to be some kind of big deal. Neon stares back, completely shocked that he's taking this so lightly. He brushes her off, saying a knight's honor is the only thing that really matters in a fight. The monster charges, trailing dark energy and blue flames as it swings for his head. A blinding flash of gold erupts as Leon blocks the blow with zero effort. He keeps his cool, watching the giant's every move with a sharp, judgmental eye. He parries another strike with just the tip of his sword, showing off his superior technique. The floor cracks under the weight of the impact, but Leon doesn't move an inch. He mocks the monster's form, telling it that its steps are far too light to be effective. Leon shifts his weight, sending a shockwave through the floor that sends debris flying. Nayeon watches in awe as he uses the monster's own momentum to throw it off balance. He follows up with a lightning-fast strike, his blade glowing as it closes in on the creature's helm. Leon backs off for a second, telling the undead knight to get back into a proper stance. The Dullahan hesitates, its blue fire flickering as it tries to figure out its opponent. Leon stands there with one hand behind his back, treating the whole thing like a light warm-up. He invites the monster to try that sword attack again, wanting to see more of its style. They trade blows in a blur of motion, steel ringing through the entire cavern. Leon catches the massive blade for the third time, completely shutting down the attack. He pauses, asking the creature if it actually wants to keep going. The Dullahan stops, its mind flooded with the desire to fight as a real warrior instead of a puppet. The battle kicks into high gear, light and sparks flying as they clash again and again. Leon moves with a grace from another life, remembering the legendary duels of his past. A sword spins through the air, shattered by the sheer force of the king's strikes. He counts his 10th clean hit as the Dullahan's weapon is hammered into the ground. Leon notes that the knight's swordsmanship is actually getting sharper as they fight. The Dullahan is overcome with emotion, finally feeling like the honorable warrior it once was. Leon stands his ground, asking if the knight is ready for the final round. A crowd of skeletons watches from the shadows, their glowing eyes fixed on the duel. One soldier stands perfectly still, witnessing the end of an era. The Dullahan finally drops to one knee, admitting defeat in the most honorable way. It reflects on the ages spent as a mindless monster, causing nothing but pain. Memories of endless massacres flash by, a past filled with blood and zero honor. But right now, it feels nothing but pure joy to have found a worthy opponent. Leon gives a small smile, genuinely happy that the knight found his pride again. He reaches out and gently places a hand on the giant's armored head. He offers a blessing, wishing for the goddess to guide the knight's soul to a peaceful rest. Leon hopes they'll meet again as true knights in the banquet hall of the gods. He releases a final burst of holy light, commanding the spirit to be free. The knight's helmet slowly dissolves into glowing embers, leaving nothing but peace behind. Leon's visage glows with divine power as the spell completes, marking the end of the duel. The team regroups near their transport in the field, clearly shaken by the sheer scale of the battle they just witnessed. Nayeon and Daesung are at a loss for words, struggling to process that Leon actually treated a monster with such high honor. Leon speaks up, explaining that his power is a standard of the soul, not just a tool for slaughter. Nayeon addresses him as royalty, but he simply notes that the knight deserved to die as a warrior, not a mindless slave. He gazes out at the spot where the boss fell, satisfied that the creature received a noble end. He shifts his focus, casually walking off to claim the rewards of his victory, while the others look on. There, resting in the dirt, is a glowing purple orb and the Dullahan's heavy, enchanted gear. The hunters are wide-eyed at the sight, already imagining the massive payout they'll get from selling such concentrated mana. The orb pulses with a dark, intense light, looking like a treasure that any hunter would kill for. Daesung is already counting the money, but Leon suddenly smashes the orb, turning the treasure into useless debris. With a look of pure disdain, Leon declares that items born of such corruption are nothing but garbage that breeds chaos. Dullahan's cape and greatsword. Not a bad haul for a single gate. Hanhari pushes a room service cart down the hallway with a heavy sigh. She looks like she hasn't slept in days. It's only been 4 days since Leon got back, but she's already at her limit. Her eyes are dead. A lot has happened in a very short amount of time. First, there was that whole mess with the taxes. Leon was genuinely offended that anyone would ask a king to pay them. The local farmers didn't know how to react to his sudden demand for a tithe. He told them to pay 90% of their yield, acting like he was doing them a massive favor. But then, Hari showed up with the actual appraisal value for that blessed rice. One 80-kilogram bag is worth 1.5 billion won. The old folks are absolutely stunned. Leon just gives them a smug look. Suddenly, everyone's a believer. Then came the nightmare of finding him a place to live. He demanded a luxury palace with servants on standby. Hari had to scramble to find anything that fit his standards. She was on the phone until 2 in the morning, just to book him a 5-star suite. She literally had to grovel to get him to just go to sleep. Back to the present, she announces herself at the door. Time for breakfast. Leon is lounging in a silk robe. He actually asks if she's eaten yet. He tells her not to go around skipping meals. Hari starts to think maybe he's actually a nice guy. That spread looks incredible. The ribs are practically glowing. She's starving. She was just going to grab a sandwich later, but this is tempting. Leon gestures for her to take a seat. Her eyes sparkle. Is he really going to share his breakfast with her? She sits down, hands together, ready to dig in. Leon just stares. He wants to know why she isn't deboning the ribs for him. He hits her with the cold truth. Kings and peasants don't dine at the same table. Hari is officially dead inside. Later that day, the association finally moves him into a permanent residence. In the car, Hari brings up the loot distribution. Leon tells her to just handle it herself. Except for the cape. He's keeping that one. They pull up to a massive, high-end apartment building. It's close to HQ and even has its own helipad. Pretty convenient for a king. Leon stops to stare at some modern art in the lobby. He's clearly confused. Suddenly, someone calls out Hari's name. She freezes. This move was supposed to be top secret. Who found them? It's Park Jong-chan, a director from the Dujung Group, one of the biggest corporations in the country. Hari is panicking. A top tribal director waiting for them is never a good sign. He knows Leon is the famous survivor, and goes in for a friendly handshake. Leon just stares at the guy's hand with pure disgust. A mere merchant wants a handshake? Leon looks like he's about to be sick. He just walks straight past the director, leaving him hanging. Hari is relieved, but now they've made an enemy. She wonders why a guy that powerful would even bother coming here. Leon already knows. Merchants only follow one scent: profit. And that blessed rice in the Honam Plains is basically liquid gold. Turns out, the association's attempts to keep a lid on things didn't work out too well. To make matters worse, a streamer caught the field incident on camera. The association told him to delete the footage, but he just re-uploaded it. Hari is reaching her breaking point. Meanwhile, Director Park is back at his office, absolutely fuming. He can't get over that savage treating him like trash. He's demanding verification on the miracle rice, skeptical that it'll work on humans just because it worked on some animals. His assistant reports back. They've been digging into the source of the rice field to get more info. The evidence is undeniable. Dying pets are recovering, and people's chronic illnesses are disappearing instantly. Park has to admit it. The stuff is legitimate, but his ego is still bruised. He's the director of the Dujung group, and he got called a mere merchant to his face. He knows he's going to have to face that guy again. He slams his desk in a rage. He refuses to let anyone look down on him or his company. In his mind, Leon is just an arrogant survivor who happens to be lucky. He's ready for war. Park's decided on his revenge. He's going to hit Leon with enough culture shock to bring the arrogant king to his knees. Leon's back on Earth, and he's already got a 3-step plan. Step 1. Start spreading the word about divinity. Step 2. Bring back the Knights Templar, because this world is seriously lacking in holy fighters. He considers himself a demigod, so naturally, his knights are basically saints sent to wreak evil. And Step 3. Wipe out every bit of evil on the planet to get his divine power back. It's a lot of work to keep the balance and raise an army from scratch. But Leon isn't stressed. He's just here to fulfill his duty. Hanhari interrupts his wine time to mention some big shot wants a meeting. Leon's feeling generous, so he agrees. In walks Park Jong-chan and his suit-wearing goons. Leon looks about as interested as a guy waiting for a bus. Jong-chan plays nice, calling Leon Your Majesty, while secretly thinking he's just a savage he can manipulate for business. He puts a high-tech looking case on the floor, promising a small gift. He's already dreaming about becoming Leon's manager and running the show. Leon just says he'll take it without even looking up. Jong-chan is floored. The guy didn't even check the contents! Leon just points and tells Hanhari to open it up for him. She reaches out to pop the latches. The case hisses open with a cloud of steam. It's packed with high-end blades, the best weapons Jong-chan's group has to offer. Hanhari's jaw drops. These are unique rank items from the Dujung group. Jong-chan's feeling pretty smug about himself right now. Hari can't believe her eyes. These are top-tier weapons you can't even buy with money. But Leon isn't impressed. He takes one look and calls them low-rank weapons. Hari and Jong-chan are absolutely stunned by the insult. Leon scoffs, asking if they only use these to hunt animals since they don't have any divine blessings on them. Jong-chan is sweating bullets, completely lost on what this guy expects. Leon calls him a faithless merchant, and Jong-chan starts frantically apologizing. To show him what a real weapon looks like, Leon pulls a glowing sword straight out of thin air. He draws it slowly, the blade shimmering with blue energy. Jong-chan thinks it just looks like some old, rusty sword and feels insulted. Leon ignores his suit and calls out to Hanhari. He asks if she wants to test out one of these toys. She reaches out and grabs one of the handles. It's Dawn, a masterpiece she's been admiring for years. She can feel the sun energy vibrating through the hilt. She asks for permission to swing it, but Leon tells her it's basically just a toy. She winds up and lets out a war cry. She brings the glowing blade down with everything she's got, and it snaps like a toothpick against Leon's sword. Leon looks bored again. He calls it a waste of time. His eye starts glowing with that scary blue light as he cuts the meeting time down to 3 minutes. Jong-chan is panicking. His group's strongest weapon just got trashed like it was nothing. He drops the act and bows, asking for the patent rights to that special rice. Jong-chan tries to steer the conversation toward business, sweating a bit while promising they'll pay up. He throws out a massive number, 180 billion won, thinking he's being generous for a cancer-curing miracle. Leon just leans back with a look of pure disdain, asking if the guy seriously thinks money can buy something so sacred. Thinking he's winning, Jong-chan pushes even further, demanding a contract for a total monopoly over the rice. That was the final straw. Leon's eyes go cold as he calls him a brainless merchant. A massive flaming lion erupts behind him as Leon lets his divine wrath loose, demanding to know how a mere merchant dares to insult divinity. A high-ranking official grovels on the floor, surrounded by guards who can only watch in silence. A massive, flaming lion head looms over him, its eyes glowing with a terrifying power. Reynold Sherman trembles, pleading for his life and claiming he doesn't even know what mistake he made. Back with Leon Dragonia Lionheart, he sits back and calls his guests ignorant for thinking money can buy anything. He explains that the crops thereafter were born from land blessed by the goddess Demera. That blessing was a reward for the honest labor of farmers, and faith is the only currency the goddess accepts. Leon leans in, questioning why they'd even want products from a goddess they don't believe in. The man leaves in a hurry, leaving Leon to stare out at the city skyline. Kim So-mi notes that while the guy was just a merchant to Leon, he's actually a very influential figure. Leon shifts gears, asking if the items he requested are finally ready for him. So-mi asks if he plans on taking the hunter test himself, thinking it would make her job a whole lot easier. The king looks absolutely offended at the suggestion that he needs to be tested by anyone. So-mi is stunned by the sudden drop in his mood. Leon clarifies that he's going there to scout for potential soldiers, and he'll be the one doing the testing. He tells her to make it happen, leaving So-mi completely exhausted by his demands. Later, at the Hunter Association, a young man named Gu Daisung runs into an old friend. Manager Kim Do-hun waves him over, assuming the D-rank hunter is back for a retest. Daesung just laughs awkwardly, admitting he's been putting in the work lately. Dohan asks how he thinks he'll do this year, and if he can finally rank up. Daesung looks a bit discouraged, noting that even talentless people reach C rank while he's been stuck at D for 10 years. Dohan encourages him, saying he's dedicated and will eventually become an ace on the mining team. Daesung knows he can't give up because dungeon raids are the only way to support his family. Dohan suddenly stops, noticing a foreigner who just walked into the lobby. They watch him pass, wondering if he's a laborer from a poor country in the west. Despite his casual outfit, they both agree the man has the aura of a royal. Leon stops and looks back as if he sensed them talking. Dohan tries to be friendly, greeting the young man in broken English. Leon turns on them with a chilling glare, asking who the peasant thinks he's talking to. Dohan is completely frozen by the sudden, intense pressure radiating from Leon. Daesung awkwardly guesses that Leon must have learned Korean from a very strange teacher. Leon ignores them and continues walking, leaving them in his wake. Dohan is left stunned, barely able to process what just happened. Daesung starts to sweat, feeling a crushing weight on his chest as if he can't breathe. To him, Leon looks like he's wreathed in literal flames of divine authority. A staff member calls out for number 57 to head to the interview room. Daesung snaps out of it and quickly follows her instructions. He tells the staff he's just nervous, but he's actually still shaken by the encounter. Leon stands in the lobby, thinking about how none of these low rankers are worthy of being his soldiers. A screen announces that number 77 is up next, and he heads toward the room. He enters a testing area where the examiners are waiting with a large mechanical device. One of them calls him Leon C, but he immediately demands to be addressed as Your Majesty. The examiners just stare as they ask him to place his hand on the measuring device to begin. Leon is genuinely offended. He asks how a mere peasant dares to test a knight's honor. The examiner breaks into a sweat, stammering that it's the device doing the work, not him. Leon's aura practically crushes the poor guy. He declares that only honorable knights or gods have the right to measure someone like him. He looks around the room, unimpressed, and asks what the next test is. The examiner manages to mention there's a trial waiting at the gate. Leon agrees to go take a look, leaving the examiner wondering if this guy actually intends to participate in the grunt work. The scene shifts out to the Seoul Gate. Gu Daesung is already on site, feeling like this year's strength measurement is going to be the same old story. He knows he needs a breakthrough here if he wants to finally move up in the world. A couple of newbies show up, looking way too excited. A girl named Jinmi is busy marveling at the scenery until her partner tells her to turn off her phone. Daesung just watches them, clocking 2 more rookies in the mix. Even the old manager, Kim Dohan, is there enjoying the fresh air. Daesung assumes everyone here is just a D or C rank hunter like him. Then he spots the foreigner from the lobby, walking onto the field, looking completely out of place in a full suit. He figures the guy must be another newbie based on his age, completely unaware of who he's dealing with. Leon just adjusts his sunglasses with a confident smirk, looking like he's ready to turn this test into his own personal playground. The group gathers in an open field to kick off their quest. Gu Daesung steps up first, introducing himself as a veteran warrior. Shin Tae-hoon and his sister, Nayeon, show off their gear and rookie status. Daesung is already sweating, realizing he's babysitting absolute beginners. The siblings are a bit too enthusiastic for their first real hunt. Oh Gang-tae joins the group, an older hunter who recently tried to retire. Daesung is skeptical that an old man with gauntlets can keep up. Leon drops a bombshell he has no intention of doing any fighting. Daesung is left speechless, wondering what this guy's deal is. The party moves into the woods to track down their targets. The examiner explains the test involves hunting kobolds and watching out for gnolls. Daesung finally notices that Leon didn't even bring a weapon. Nayeon tries to be helpful and offers Leon her bow. Leon looks down at the weapon like it's a piece of trash. He snaps the bow over his knee, calling anyone who uses range a coward. Daesung is convinced this whole mission is going to be a disaster. He decides to take charge and leads them toward the monster dens. His plan is to use smoke to flush the kobolds out into the open. The rookies are instantly impressed by his tactical thinking. Daesung plays it cool, but he's just desperate to survive. He's tired of being D rank and wants this promotion more than anything. His focus sharpens as the hunt officially begins. They reach the cave as a swarm of monsters comes rushing out. Daesung yells for Tae-hoon to get a shield into position. A kobold gets sent flying by a well-timed strike. Tae-hoon holds his ground, realizing these things aren't too smart. Nayeon screams a warning as one leaps from the shadows. The beast lunges straight for Tae-hoon's blind spot. Daesung leaps into the fray to intercept the attack. He cuts down the monster and warns the kids to stay alert. Tae-hoon slams his shield into a snarling monster's face. Daesung is hyped, seeing the end of the test in sight. They stand over a pile of defeated kobolds, catching their breath. Tae-hoon apologizes for a mistake, but Daesung brushes it off. Daesung is feeling more confident than ever. He admits to himself that this team isn't actually that bad. Then there's Leon, who still hasn't moved a single muscle. Nayeon finally snaps and calls him out for being useless. She demands the examiner mark Leon down for being lazy. The group arrives at the entrance of the main cave. They start piling up brush and leaves to smoke the cave out. Leon finally speaks up, asking if this pathetic plan is really their best effort. Leon stands with his arms crossed, unimpressed by their mediocre plan. He questions their supposed experience, calling out their lack of real skill. Daesung just grumbles and lights the brush. Done, with Leon's backseat driving. He tells the team to gather around as the smoke begins to fill the cave. The hunters get into position, weapons drawn and eyes locked on the entrance. Right on cue, a wave of kobolds comes scrambling out, hacking and coughing. Nayeon gives the signal to open fire on the disoriented monsters. A projectile catches a kobold right in the head with lethal precision. The group moves in, picking off the beasts as they stumble out into the light. Daesung smirks, feeling like a genius now that his plan is actually working. But his confidence instantly vanishes when he feels a massive presence behind him. A giant knoll captain drops down from above, snarling at the intruders. This thing is the gate's boss, and its rank is way higher than they can handle. Daesung freezes in terror, wondering why a boss is showing up this early. Gu Daesung takes charge, ordering Shin Tae-hoon to help him with the knoll captain boss while the others handle the mobs in the back. They rush in together, weapons ready, but the sheer size of their opponent is intimidating. Daesung knows he's just an inexperienced D rank. Charging a boss like this is practically a suicide mission. The knoll captain isn't impressed. It roars, looming over the rookies with glowing red eyes. The pressure is enough to paralyze Daesung. He's frozen in place, sweating as the beast prepares to strike. The monster doesn't hesitate, bringing its massive blade down with enough force to crush anything in its path. Daesung snaps out of it and screams for Tae-hoon. Realize he's in serious trouble. Over on the sidelines, the association examiner just watches with his clipboard. He doesn't seem interested in helping, even as the situation spirals. The impact is massive, and Daesung is nearly knocked off his feet by the weight of the blow. The knoll follows up immediately, slamming its blade down to finish off the struggling trainee. Daesung barely manages to raise his shield in time, the ground cracking beneath him from the sheer pressure. The monster roars again, preparing another strike that looks like it'll be the end of the line. Daesung stares up, trembling as the blade descends. He's certain there's no way he can block this one. Suddenly, the giant weapon just stops. A single finger is holding it back like it's nothing. Leon is standing right there, looking completely unimpressed. He tells the monster to try a little harder. Daesung is speechless, staring at Leon's hand in pure disbelief. The king doesn't offer a hand up. Instead, he tells the kid to get his shield back in place and face the enemy again. He points out that Daesung already blocked it once, so there's no reason he shouldn't be able to do it a second time. When Daesung hesitates, Leon loses his patience. He's the king of Lionheart. How dare a peasant defy his guidance? The monster isn't finished either. It braces itself, glowing with a dangerous purple aura. It's going into a frenzy, looking even more terrifying than before. Leon isn't worried. He just looks at the rabid dog with cold, lethal contempt. The knoll actually flinches. It lets out a whimper, sensing a predator far more dangerous than itself. It pivots away from Leon and lunges at Daesung, desperate for an easier target. The impact is brutal. Daesung's teeth rattle, and he almost loses his grip on his shield. Leon stands by with his arms crossed, giving a lecture on not taking head-on hits from stronger opponents. He tells him to deflect the energy instead of trying to tank it. This isn't a mindless dummy. It's a beast that can learn. Daesung is frustrated, wondering how he's supposed to think when his life is on the line. He shifts his weight and catches the blow at an angle, sending a shower of sparks flying. Leon watches the progress, warning him not to let his potential rot away. He keeps the pressure on, insisting that the trainee can do much better than this. Daesung can't believe what he's hearing. He's just a talentless D rank with no special skills. The knoll roars in his face, ready to tear him apart. But something changes. Daesung plants his feet and prepares for the final impact. He lets out a roar of his own, finally finding a spark of resolve. The knoll's blade comes down one last time, cutting through the air with a whistle. A massive shockwave echoes through the chamber as Daesung meets the strike perfectly. He's still alive. He actually blocked the full weight of the knoll captain's attack. The simulation ends, leaving him gasping for air on the ground while Leon walks away without a second glance. Leon sighs, disappointed. The kid still has a lot to learn if he wants to see the big picture. Daesung is out cold on the floor, looking completely battered from the ordeal. And despite everything he just went through, the official evaluation results stay the same. A solid D. Leon sits across from his mysterious examiner, noting that a warrior of his caliber could never pass as a simple mercenary. The man smiles and drops his disguise, revealing himself as Oh Kang-hyuk, the president of the Korean Hunter Association. Kang-hyuk asks if the evaluation was worth the effort, and Leon admits he at least found one potential candidate for his army. Leon senses the tension in the room and reassures the president that he doesn't have any immediate plans to take his talents overseas. Kang-hyuk lets out a sigh of relief, admitting that seeing the king's power in person was enough to make even him nervous. He's still thinking about how Leon treated a C-rank dungeon boss like a harmless toy, stopping its blade with a single finger. The president laughs, offering the association's full backing if Leon ever decides to establish a guild of his own. But the friendly talk is just a prelude to the real reason they're meeting. Kangyuk brings up a red gate in Cheongju, a disaster area born from a failed raid that has since spiraled out of control. It's been an active threat for a year, and every team sent to clear it has been wiped out, leaving behind a graveyard of skulls. To shut it down, they need to secure the Jewel of Wisdom, guarded by the gate's lethal mechanical boss, Jagged Spinner. We start with a flashback to the Cheongju Sports Complex gate raid, led by the first team from the KPP Guild. Guildmaster Hansu leads his team into the unknown territory. One of his men notices something immediately. This place isn't some dark dungeon, it looks like a modern city. As they walk further, they see a massive, high-tech cityscape that puts Earth's technology to shame. The hunters are stunned, calling the whole vibe more cyberpunk than anything they've ever seen. Hansu realizes they need to change their strategy, since they were expecting a few strong monsters, not an entire civilization. They decide to head for a tall building nearby to set up a base camp and get a better view. Hoyle scouts the area but reports that the city is completely dead. No people, no monsters, nothing. It's eerie. A place this size shouldn't be a ghost town. They pass a mechanical statue, relieved they aren't dealing with an actual resistance army. The archer, Hieri, notes they still don't have any solid info on the Jagged Spinner threat. Suddenly, a beam of light cuts through the building behind them. Hansu is hit before he can even blink, his armor offering no protection. A drone appears overhead, and someone screams for the team to find cover. Explosions start rocking the street, trapping the hunters in a kill zone. Panic takes over. If an A-rank tanker like Hansu went down that fast, they don't stand a chance. They try to find the shooter, but the dust and smoke make it impossible to see. Hoyle makes the call to leave the guildmaster's body and retreat before they're all wiped out. He tells Hayeri to check the exit and lead the way out. She sprints toward the hole in the wall, calling back that it looks safe. But she stops midair, sensing something's wrong. Glowing red wires suddenly appear everywhere, boxing her in. The others can only watch as she's trapped by the laser-like trap. They realize the entire area is covered in these wires. It's been a trap from the very beginning. Hoyle draws his sword and orders everyone to cut their way out using mana. He's losing it, wondering if there's really only one enemy doing all this. A targeting HUD locks onto the survivors, calculating the final blow. The mechanical nightmare, Jagged Spinner, moves in for the kill. One hunter looks back just in time to see the blade swing. A massive explosion levels the entire street. Hoyle is the last one left, kneeling in the ruins of his guild. He screams into the dust, demanding the coward show its face. The mechanical spider drone finally steps into the light. He realizes this thing is the legendary Jagged Spinner. In a final act of defiance, he lunges at the machine that slaughtered his friends. A clean blue flash cuts him down instantly. The drone stands over the carnage. Its mission complete. Cut to some new faces outside the Golden Lion Guild has arrived. Their leader, Hwang Jumcho, lays out the deal for the raid. He's after the Jewel of Wisdom, while the others can split the massive payout. Records show that the S-rank guildmaster of the Golden Lion was among those who finally conquered this gate. The roster of hunters gathering for the gate continues with Gil Taesung, a near S-rank from the Magic Tower, who's brought along a small army of 48 mercenaries. Representing the Korean Hunter Association is Han Hari, an A-rank hunter who seems more focused on serving His Majesty than the upcoming mission. And then there's the unexpected addition to the list, Leon himself, looking completely unbothered as he sits amidst the rubble and enjoys a cup of barley tea. The ruins of a city once filled with life now sit quiet under a heavy, gray sky. At the raid team's base camp, the hunters prepare for their upcoming mission within the gate. Hanhari watches them work, feeling a bit uneasy despite the relative calm. She tells Leon she's worried things are going too well, which might mean he won't get any fame for this clear. Leon just looks at her and asks what she thinks the actual duty of a king is supposed to be. To him, anyone can sit on a throne and rule, but a true king is a last resort for his people. He remembers how he only stepped onto the battlefield when his knights couldn't hold the line any longer. He tells her that the King of Lionheart is the ultimate fortress of the kingdom. For him, having to fight personally is actually a source of shame for the knights who serve him. Leon stands tall, looking down on the world with a regal, detached air. He decides he'll have to step in again, seeing as everyone around him is so pitifully weak. Hanhari mentions they have S-rank hunters like Hwang Jumchul on their side, so they should be fine. Leon's eyes glow as he says they might be strong for humans, but they don't know what real war is like. Nearby, a mechanical drone stands ready, its sensors scanning the perimeter for any movement. A massive explosion suddenly tears through the city's outskirts, catching everyone's attention. Chaos erupts as the hunters mistake the mechanical drone for their target, Jagged Spinner. The drone's digital HUD lights up as it locks onto the approaching threats. Electrical surges crackle across its frame as it powers up its weapons to defend itself. It fires a blinding beam of energy straight into the hunter ranks. The explosion sends hunters flying, their coordination shattered in an instant. One man stares up from the dirt, terrified by the sheer power of this mechanical monster. The drone's display confirms it's ready to continue firing for maximum effect. A hunter with a heavy hammer leaps forward, trying to crush the machine with a single blow. He slams his weapon down, causing a massive shockwave across the drone's top shell. Damage reports flash across the HUD as the internal pressure begins to climb dangerously high. It immediately reprioritizes its targets, marking the hammer wielder for removal. The hunter is caught in a point-blank blast that knocks him clean off his feet. Another beam of light slams into the surroundings, turning the city into a full-on war zone. Electrical energy continues to swirl around the drone as it prepares its next lethal move. A mage named Gil Taesung steps in, certain he can stop the mechanical beast. The drone system labels him a level 3 risk and starts scanning for any possible weakness. It fires a quick burst of bullets at the mage to test his defenses. Gil Taesung activates a distortion force field, urging his teammates to gather close for protection. The shots hit the field and swerve away, seemingly harmless to those inside. The barrier continues to divert every projectile that comes anywhere near it. He tells the team the tool was made for this exact enemy, though he's annoyed he has to use it so soon. The machine notices the abnormal phenomenon and immediately switches to a maintenance operation. It starts analyzing the distortion patterns, looking for the perfect angle to bypass the shield. One quick shot fires, and it curves around the field to hit a hunter standing right next to the mage. The mage is paralyzed with shock. The machine actually calculated the swerve in just seconds. He realizes they're sitting ducks and screams for the force field to be turned off. As the barrier drops, the hunters prepare for a desperate charge against the Mechanical King. Gil Taesung screams for everyone to halt as he realizes they've walked right into a lethal trap. The hunters look around in confusion, noticing strange white wires suddenly crisscrossing the ruins. While they were distracted by the shield, the drone managed to wire up the entire area, fencing them in. The machine glows with a surge of blue electricity as its systems begin charging for a massive attack. They realize that huddling together was a fatal mistake now. They have absolutely nowhere to run. Just as things look their worst, the rhythmic thud of galloping hooves echoes through the dusty ruins. The hunters are completely caught off guard, wondering where a horse could possibly have come from in this place. Leon charges into view, riding his mount straight through the web of wires without hesitation. The horse looks just as regal as its rider, its eyes glowing with a fierce, otherworldly light. Leon stands with his old sworn friend, ready to take control of the chaotic battlefield. He commands the attention of everyone present, his voice booming with the authority of a true sovereign. He addresses the mechanical beast directly, praising its courage for standing alone against an entire squad. Leon formally grants the machine the glory of a duel, giving it royal permission to try and fight him. The hunters are left completely speechless, genuinely wondering if Leon has finally lost his mind. Sir Jagged Spinner, a cold and efficient combat drone, starts scanning for targets. It identifies an unidentified being and preps its weapons to remove the simple organism. Leon Dragonia Lionheart doesn't flinch, charging forward on his horse as the machine locks on. The drone unleashes a massive blast of energy, lighting up the entire area. Leon shouts in defiance, mocking the drone for relying on such cowardly long-range attacks. He continues his charge, the horse galloping through the heavy debris without slowing down. A massive projectile slams into Leon's barrier, the force of the explosion unable to touch him. Leon calls out a divine blessing, the Arrow Shield, to neutralize the machine's firepower. It's a powerful law that lets him deflect any projectile attack once, no matter the intensity. Sir Jag Spinner's internal system glitches out, completely unable to analyze the divine interference. The AI reevaluates the situation, jacking Leon's threat level all the way up to 5 as he continues his advance. Realizing it's outmatched, the drone's programming forces it to leave the battlefield immediately. With a burst of speed, the mechanical spider retreats into the distance. Leon watches it go, noting with interest that the machine actually had the sense to run. Deep in the drone's memory, a voice from the past echoes a woman telling Yapi to protect this place and let no one near it. Back at its base, Jagd Spinner runs diagnostics on its unusable heavy arms and disposes of its waste. It still has machine gun ammo left, but the internal system notes it needs to start manufacturing more soon. The drone begins modulation, shifting its systems to adapt to the new threat level. A final, glitchy memory of the woman flashes through a simple "thank you for protecting the city." Mission resumption? Possible. The mechanical knight is back online and ready to hunt. This was the Cheongju Sports Complex gate, right in the heart of the city, where the chaos was at its worst. A group of hunters watches from the shadows, spotting the machine gun peeking out from a corner 250 meters away. One hunter tells the others to wait while they prepare a distraction to get past the sentry. They move forward, but they only find a trail of blood and the mangled remains of previous teams. One guy loses it, charging out with his shield while calling the drone a gross spider baboon. Red laser sights fill the alley, and the air is suddenly filled with the spray of blood as the drone fires. A younger hunter turns and runs in absolute terror, begging for his life. Jagspinner scans the fleeing man, labeling him a threat level 0. The guy trips and face plants into the grass, paralyzed with fear. He looks back, sobbing as the drone looms over him, but the lethal shot never comes. Another memory fragment surfaces the woman in the graveyard, knowing she wouldn't be around much longer. She asked Yapi if it would still protect the city and its people, even after she was gone. The drone's current logic priority is simple: the complete removal of all invaders. The hunter is stunned, realizing that for some reason, the monster is letting him live. Without a word, the drone launches itself into the sky and disappears. The hunter crawls back to his leader, Gu Daisung, trying to claim the machine was just tired. High above, Jagspinner's system confirms its final decision to retreat from the area. It surveys the city's cemetery, its ultimate priority still being to protect the citizens, even the dead. It detects that there are still 49 enemies remaining and prepares for its next move. In the present, Leon finds the damaged, sparking drone tucked away in a corner of the palace. He looks down at his metal knight with a smug smile, asking if it had its fill of fun with the commoners. Leon looks back and asks if everyone's ready. He figures he shouldn't expect honor from a machine. Sir Yappy performs an equipment check, prepping its 60mm machine gun. The command is given to fire, and the guns roar to life. Leon invokes a divine law, summoning a shield against the arrows. Projectiles rain down on the battlefield as he holds his position. An explosion rocks the area, leaving Leon standing in a crater. Sir Yappy hovers above, scanning the smoke. It sweeps a red laser across the ground to find targets. Leon charges through the chaos on a white horse. Fireballs rain down as they break through the enemy line. He jokes that the enemy is just trying to play hide and seek. Light erupts from the charge as they push into the center. The machine's leg locks down to stabilize its aim. It launches a mass attack, filling the sky with streaks of fire. Massive explosions tear through the ranks of the monsters. Watching the carnage, Leon admits the machine isn't bad. He continues the charge as more shells impact the ground. They leap over the crumbling stone structures. Leon and his stallion glide through the air over the ruined city. Sir Yappy targets everything in sight for its final barrage. Kim Jin-soo swings his blade, sparks flying as he fights. He roars out for glory. He dedicates the fight to the Lionhearts, glowing with golden energy. Sir Yappy begins to break apart under the heavy damage. Error messages flash as the machine's operation limits are surpassed. A voice from the past warns that what's sealed here must never be released. Sir Yappy prepares to self-detonate. A blinding light consumes the entire facility. A massive mushroom cloud rises over the city's remains. Centuries ago, the Unit JS 10,253 first opened its eyes in an oil-soaked container. It was sent out with a simple order: protect the city. The machine had only one goal: to support its allies on the battlefield. A legion of steel marched out to face the demonic invasion. They successfully defeated the enemies and were hailed as heroes. The people celebrated them as symbols of hope and knights of steel. They were eventually remodeled to keep fighting under their commander. They protected the city through countless sieges. But eventually, the city fell until there was nothing left to protect. A wounded researcher gave JS 10,253 her final request. The machine received its last order to ensure that thing never left. It was a vow to keep everyone away from the sealed core forever. The machine stayed behind in the ruins of its city, endlessly preparing for the next assault. It fought against every invading demon, single-handedly protecting the kingdom's greatest treasure. For centuries, its existence was a cycle of preparing and protecting, over and over again. Now, the last of its power is finally fading as it sparks in the dirt. Leon stands up among the wreckage, relieved his arrow shield held together during the fall. He looks up at the massive structure housing the glowing purple orb the machine died for. Leon draws his weapon, identifying the artifact as a jewel of wisdom. He approaches the pillar, noting that such a thing shouldn't even exist in this world. He looks down at the broken Yapi and asks just how long it's been fighting this lonely war. He recognizes the machine as a true knight, one filled with absolute devotion and loyalty. Raising his sword, Leon solemnly declares the machine's long quest is finally complete. Golden light erupts around him as he acknowledges its centuries of tireless service. A massive pillar of divinity shoots into the sky, illuminating the ruins. The jewel of wisdom is consumed by the light as the entire chamber shakes. Leon offers a final prayer for the Steel Knight to finally rest in peace. Leon and Kim Jinsu walk down a sterile hallway. Jinsu is all smiles, reminding the king that since he's the one who defeated the Jag Spinner, the loot is his to do with as he pleases. But Leon isn't in a celebratory mood, revealing that the jewel they found was actually poison. He explains that the item was forged by pure evil to lure humans into their own destruction. Jinsu stops in his tracks, horrified at the mention of a demon. Leon warns him that these cursed objects start by granting wishes, but the cost eventually becomes too high. It's a trap meant to peel away a person's humanity with false promises of eternal life, until eventually, nothing remains but a new demon to serve the darkness. Shaken, Jinsu realizes this is a major incident that needs to be reported to the government immediately. They reach the heavy blast doors of a secure facility. Leon stares ahead, suspecting the people here might have already started falling for the demon's lies. They enter a lab where the remains of the mechanical knight are being kept under close watch. The broken shell of the Yag spinner sits on a platform, surrounded by researchers. Looking at the wreckage, Leon decides to give the fallen foe a proper burial so his soul can find peace. But first, he summons the Holy Grail, preparing a final blessing for the scrap metal. He pours divine light directly onto the twisted remains. Jinsu panics as the supposedly dead machine starts twitching back to life. Leon senses a surge of divine power. The machine isn't just moving, it's reacting to the blessing. Even without a power source, the holy light is working a miracle on the junk. A small, reconstructed drone emerges from the ruins of the giant knight. Leon draws his blade, sensing that his goddess has taken a personal interest in this soul. He stands before the others as a pillar of golden, celestial fire erupts around him. With one swift motion, he swings his blade and fills the entire room with holy energy. The brilliance is blinding, washing over every corner of the lab. High above, the ethereal form of goddess Ariana appears, gazing down with a calm expression. The sheer weight of her presence forces everyone in the room to their knees. Jinsu can barely look up, realizing he's standing before a being far beyond anything human. Ariana descends, her divine light incomparable to anything these hunters have ever seen. She acknowledges Leon as her first knight and asks him what he desires. Leon gestures to the small drone, explaining that the Jag spinner was an honorable knight who deserves care. Ariana smiles softly, agreeing that his knightly spirit is worth preserving. She reaches out a hand toward the little machine. She offers the Steel Knight a place in her service, asking him to fight for justice and the light. As Leon bows, Ariana officially ordains the machine as a knight of her realm. The drone let out a series of electronic chirps, accepting the sacred oath. Systems start overwriting as a new language module is force installed into its core. The drone immediately identifies its new purpose, attacking demons. Pleased with the recruit, Ariana promises to be with them through every upcoming battle. In an instant, the former enemy is reborn as a Grail Knight, filled with light and justice. This little bot is now Jagged Spinna 10,253, the newest member of the King's military. Meanwhile, over at the USA's Magic Tower, Master Reynold Sherman cringes in his dark office, begging for forgiveness from a great being for failing his mission. Reynold Sherman is flat on the floor, trembling as the voice from the red orb reminds him that despite all the secrets he was given, he's still a disappointment. Drenched in a cold sweat, Reynold stammers that Leon's survival was an impossible variable that nobody could have anticipated. The jewel flares with rage, shouting that his ears are being tainted with nothing but useless excuses for a total failure. The voice from the orb continues its verbal assault, leaving the Tower Master paralyzed with fear. Reynold scrambles to his feet and rushes to the TV when the voice demands he check the news immediately. On the screen, Leon is in the middle of a global broadcast, publicly declaring himself the King of Lionheart. As the broadcast plays, a guttural, inhuman screech rips through the room, reacting violently to Leon's image. Reynold is stunned. He's never heard his master sound like this. It isn't just rage, it's pure, unadulterated terror. The red light abruptly shoots out of the orb and vanishes, leaving the voice screaming that it's quitting for good. Reynold is left clutching a dull, gray rock, desperately calling out to the master who just abandoned him. A sudden burst of light clears the room, and the cursed jewel falls silent, never to speak another word. The Korea Hunter Association Tower stands tall as the process of registering Sir Jag Spinney as a guild member begins. Director Han mentions it might be tough to impose the registration immediately, but Leon says it doesn't matter. Leon walks through the association halls, followed closely by his new mechanical guild member. Suddenly, Leon doubles over, coughing up black blood while Sir Spin and Ariana's voice express concern. He wipes the dark stains from his mouth, realizing that nominating a Grail Knight in a land with zero divinity takes a serious physical toll. Catching his breath, the king tells his loyal knight it's not his fault, he just needs to be stronger himself. Leon clutches his glowing chest, telling the goddess Ariana not to blame her divinity for his current state. Appearing in a vision, Ariana thanks him for his unwavering loyalty, though she regrets the gods couldn't intervene sooner. She tells him to rest and have faith as the golden energy finally settles. Within the divine realm, Ariana gathers her fellow gods, Pedos, the god of war, Hedo, the god of steel, and the silent Anjak. Standing in their grand hall, she declares that they must find a way to help their lone follower. It's a heavy burden, considering that when the world ended, Leon was the only knight left standing. For nearly 2 centuries, Leon held all the world's divinity within his own heart to keep the monsters at bay. The gods were forced to watch from within him as he spent 180 years slaughtering every evil thing in his path. They let one man carry the weight of an entire world on his shoulders alone. Now, the entire pantheon sits at a round table, acknowledging the massive debt they owe him. Demera, the god of life, asks about Leon's current condition, only for Ariana to confirm it's looking grim. The goddess looks away, pained by how much her knight continues to push himself. Peto slams his hand down in frustration, demanding to know where Leon's former glory has gone. Ariana urges the god of war to keep his dignity, reminding him of the 200 years Leon fought for them. Peto snaps back that he's well aware, and that's exactly why he's so angry at his own helplessness. The goddess of the dead declares that the time for their silence has finally come to an end. Heto, the blacksmith god, raises his hand with a plan. He suggests they start granting blessings to restore faith among the people of this new world. When Petos asks if he's talking about missionary work, Heto clarifies that they'll simply show the humans actual miracles. The god of steel has a modern edge, planning to use the internet to their full advantage. He explains to the confused gods that Leon never thought of this, because he comes from an era long before the web was a thing. Ariana worries about the trial and error involved, noting it took 20 years for Leon's own news to take root. But Heto is confident, saying that's exactly where their new Grail Knight will come into play. Cut back to the modern day, where an association official is pulled away from his work to look at something on a phone. The manager and an examiner stare at a computer screen in disbelief, wondering how something so divine ended up on YouTube. They're looking at a channel for the Naju Plains that seems to be blowing up. One video features a farmer's humble life, but it's clearly more than it seems. Another ad shows a bowl of rice, claiming a single spoon can change a person's life forever. The comments are a mess of people calling it clickbait while marveling at the impossibly high production quality. The staff breaks into a sweat, wondering if Leon is behind this, though the manager finds that hard to believe. They check a chat log where Han Hari is complaining about her computer acting weird after seeing the videos. The manager realizes the real problem isn't the clickbait, it's that the videos are actually depicting reality. Realizing the gravity of the situation, he grabs his coat and prepares to head out. He's determined to track down Leon and get some answers about this sudden divine marketing. Outside the penthouse where Leon is staying, the night is quiet, but inside, a pair of dark, clawed hands is busy typing away on a laptop, orchestrating the next miracle. The mechanical knight is a pro, finalizing the subtitles and sending the video live. Han Hari peeks into the room, checking to see if her laptop is finally available. She approaches him with a curious look, though the robot just lets out a few mechanical whirs. Sir Spinnet isn't done yet, quickly initiating a network hack to move on to phase 2. Seeing the screen light up, Han excitedly assumes he's just gaming, which really just highlights how little she knows about technology. We head to the Naju Plains, where something big is brewing. At the temporary branch of the Pantheon Guild, the peace is about to be shattered. Han Ju-hyuk bursts through the door, shouting at Leon about a video that needs to be taken down immediately. Kim So-mi stands by with a thermos, looking on as Leon remains perfectly calm on the sofa. She offers Ju-hyuk some barley tea to help him settle his nerves. Ju-hyuk is too stressed to calm down, insisting that the video of the rice fields is a disaster. Leon nonchalantly asks who even uploaded it, only to find out it was Sir Spinnet. So-mi is stunned that the giant killing machine has apparently taken up social media. Over at a desk, the mechanical knight is actually showing off some pretty high-level typing skills on a laptop. Ju-hyuk explains the problem. The rice in these fields is unlike anything in this world, capable of curing diseases and granting health. He warns that once this secret gets out, every power on the planet will come to claim it. The plains will be swarming with high-level thieves looking for a miracle harvest. Leon doesn't share his concern, calling it a needless worry. He confidently states that nothing belonging to the goddess's plantation can be stolen. Under the cover of night, a group of hitmen known as the Viper Squad infiltrates the fields. The Viper Squad leader tells his men to focus on the job and bring out the gasoline. The ninjas move silently through the tall, golden stalks. Suddenly, one of the men stops, certain he saw a person standing in the field. He looks again, but it's just a scarecrow with button eyes and a tattered coat. His teammate mocks him, calling him an idiot for being spooked by a bundle of straw. The ninja apologizes, but he still can't shake the feeling that the thing was moving. He looks around and realizes the field is packed with dozens of these unsettling figures. They begin pouring the fuel, ready to burn the whole plantation to the ground. The leader throws down the empty canisters, asking if that's all they have left. The hitmen decide to keep some of the seeds for themselves before starting the fire. The leader suddenly notices 2 of his men have completely vanished. One ninja realizes with horror that the scarecrows aren't where they were a moment ago. He turns around and finds they've been surrounded by the Straw Guardians. A massive scarecrow looms over a ninja, wielding deadly spiked flails. The creature stares him down with a simple, creepy drawing of a face. In a flash, the scarecrow strikes, cutting the man down before he can even react. These guys are starting to panic because the scarecrows in the field are actually moving. They realize these things aren't just decorations, they're real monsters. A whole mob of scythe-wielding creeps surrounds them, and there wasn't even a warning about a dungeon break. The intruders scramble away, gasping for air as they realize these things are unlike anything they've encountered in a gate. The Viper Squad leader checks his phone. Someone hired them to steal seeds and torch the fields, and he's not letting some monsters stop his payday. They spot a silo in the distance, figuring that's where the goods are being held. The leader is practically drooling over the thought of how much money they'll make off this special rice. He signals his team to move out and steps confidently into the high grass. A massive explosion goes off right under them, sending one of his men flying. While their buddy is face down in the dirt, the rest of the squad panics, wondering why there are mines in a damn rice field. A massive mechanical foot slams down as a computerized voice identifies them as unqualified trespassers. It's the guardian robot Yagdspinna, and its only order is to remove the intruders. It doesn't take long for the entire squad to end up bound and gagged on the ground. They're stuck sitting right next to a sign listing the doctrines of life and fertility, which includes weird rules about singing to the crops. But there's one new rule added in red at the bottom: thieves die. Safe to say, the mission was a total bust. Things are changing fast now that the demonic human association has been wiped out. The value of Pantheon and that blessed rice Leon grew is absolutely skyrocketing on the market. Leon's even out here doing press photos with the president at the Blue House to keep the momentum going. You can't scroll through social media without seeing everyone buzzing about Pantheon's impact. Leon looks at all the hype and wonders if this was exactly what the gods were aiming for. Hanhari rushes in with some shocking news. The official evaluation for the rice just dropped, and it's worth an insane 230 million won per pack. Instead of being happy about the profit, Leon says it needs to be cheaper, leaving Hanhari totally confused. He's thinking about the common people. There's no way the average person can afford food at those prices. He remembers trying to talk to the president about preaching to farmers, but the guy insisted on staying religiously neutral. Hanhari is worried about the path they're on, asking if this is really going to work out for them, especially since the next target is a yellow gate, a place that looks like a literal graveyard of souls. Leon just gives a calm smile and says they'll have to wait and see how it unfolds. Later, at a recruitment hall, team manager Kim spots Gu Daesung in the crowd and waves him over. Daesung admits he's only there because of a mysterious text message from the Hunter Association president about gathering hunters. Looking around, it's mostly low-rank hunters D and C ranks who don't usually get called for big events like this. The room starts buzzing when they see Hanhari, the famous A-rank mage swordsman, walk into the hall. She arrives with a full security detail, looking like she's here for some serious business. Daesung's eyes widen when he realizes who's really behind this whole gathering. It's the survivor himself, Leon, walking in like he owns the entire place. Daesung can feel the gap between them. Leon just seems to come from a completely different world. Leon takes the stage and announces his real goal. He's looking for soldiers to join his guild, Pantheon. The word soldiers throws everyone off. They're used to being called guild members, not troops in a military. Leon tells them he's giving them the honor of joining his military, but Daesung is still stuck on the terminology. Then comes the bombshell. The entrance test is to clear the dangerous yellow gate at Samjeon Station. The hunters immediately start panicking, shouting that it's basically a suicide mission for people at their rank. Daesung and team manager Kim can only watch as the rest of the crowd starts to turn on Leon. To understand why they're so scared, you have to look at how these gates are actually ranked. Black and red are the absolute peak of danger, where entire cities go to get wiped out. Below those is orange, still a complete nightmare for even the most elite teams. But for a C or D rank hunter, a yellow gate is still a wall of certain death. The crowd starts rioting, but the association staff just tells them they're free to leave if they don't like the terms. One guy has finally had enough and storms out, shouting that he's not wasting any more of his time on this. Daesung looks on, worried that Leon is just going to let every potential recruit walk away. Just like that, the hall empties out until only a small group of hunters is left standing in the back. Leon doesn't seem bothered at all. He just singles out a specific guy in the front row. It's a guy with a large afro who nearly jumps out of his skin when he's called out by the survivor. Leon leans in and asks him point blank, "Why did you stay?" The guy stammers out that he just thought there might be some deeper meaning to the invitation. Leon turns his gaze to the next person, repeating the question with even more weight behind it. Gu Daesung finally speaks up, admitting he stayed because he didn't think Leon would actually lead them into a slaughter. Leon steps down from the podium and starts walking directly toward the remaining group. He reminds them that he's here to gather soldiers, and a soldier's first and only duty is to obey. Leon looks them in the eye and tells them their only job is to trust a knight's orders and have faith in his honor. He makes it sound simple. All they really have to do is listen and follow his lead without question. With a sharp gesture, he orders everyone to grab their share of the gear and get ready, because they're heading in right away. They arrive at the station, where a massive, glowing yellow gate is swirling at the bottom of the stairs. A small army of hunters is lined up in matching armor, looking more like a professional military unit than a ragtag group of recruits. One hunter grunts as he settles into his suit, noting that while it's heavy, the quality is easily the best he's ever touched. Gudai Song is stunned that they're being handed rare rank gear, stuff that usually costs a fortune and is way out of reach for D-rank hunters. But as they prepare to dive in, he notices that Leon hasn't put on a single piece of protection. He pulls Hanhari aside and nervously asks if the king is really going in without any armor at all. She just laughs it off, telling him that Leon's skin is actually tougher than the very metal they're wearing. Daesung looks back at the king, trying to convince himself that as long as Leon is that powerful, they might actually survive this. An, Hei-yeon, and the others trek through a dense forest, surrounded by heavily armored knights. A system window pops up, identifying them as mercenaries in the middle of a tribal war. One of the armored guys checks the support quest, realizing they have to pick a side to win. Mr. Gu figures it's just a standard faction quest where they help one tribe and get paid. Suddenly, someone spots something moving in the distance and starts panicking. An orc scout comes charging through the brush, riding a massive, red-eyed boar. The group finds himself surrounded by an entire army of orcs in the clearing. The lead orc demands to know who they are, accusing them of invading his territory. Leon stands there, looking absolutely disgusted by the creatures in front of him. An Hei-yeon suggests they just play along with the quest for now, but Leon isn't interested. She steps forward and shouts that they're just mercenaries looking for a reward. The orc lowers his guard slightly, assuming they're the outsiders his chief mentioned. He tells them to follow, while Leon's expression turns even darker in the background. They meet the chief, Karta Karak, a massive beast who looks down on them with crossed arms. He tells them to support his tribe so they can at least have an honorable death in battle. Leon's eyes start to glow with a dangerous light. He's heard enough. He interrupts the chief, catching the entire orc tribe off guard. He calls them a bunch of beasts who don't deserve the lofty dreams they're chasing. Karta Karak roars in fury, unable to believe a human would dare insult him. Leon doesn't wait. He moves in a golden flash and cuts the chief down instantly. He lets out a righteous yell, declaring that these creatures aren't warriors, but bugs. A system message reveals Leon's true history. He's an orc slayer with millions of kills. The rest of the tribe stands frozen for a second, realizing their chief was just erased. Their shock turns to rage as they all charge at once, screaming for blood. Leon barks orders at the hunters, telling them to raise their shields and hold the line. The D-rank hunters are terrified, knowing they're way out of their league against orcs. A massive orc lunges forward, swinging his blade for a killing blow. A shield catches the strike, sparks flying as the metal holds firm. The hunter is stunned, unable to believe he actually blocked a hit that strong. A massive list of buffs from Leon's Lionheart's aura floods the system screens. The hunters look at their gear, feeling a sudden surge of divine power flowing through them. Leon's legendary titles grant even more blessings, even if the hunters are too low level for most of them. He commands them to stay calm, wait for the opening, and strike when they have the chance. One of the hunters finds an opening and drives his sword straight into an orc's throat. With the new buffs, the team starts cutting through the orcs with surprising ease. Leon raises his hand as a massive golden circle appears in the sky, his eyes burning with fury. A pillar of light slams into the ground as he summons his stallion to the field. The horse, Pados, materializes and immediately crushes an orc's head under its hooves. Leon mounts up and charges into the thick of it, dual-wielding his weapons like a god of war. Blood splattered across his face, he looks less like a king and more like a demon to the orcs. The ground is quickly littered with the bodies of the tribe that try to cross him. He raises his golden sword, ready to wipe out every last one of them. Leon shouts in triumph, declaring the slaughter an honorable victory. The hunters cheer behind him, caught up in the excitement of the win. An Hei-yeon looks at the carnage and asks him why he did it. Leon blankly asks if he needs a reason to kill orcs while she stammers about the quest they were supposed to follow. He says helping orcs is pure nonsense, and he'd rather jump into a pit of fire. Leon looks down at her and calls the creatures sickening beasts. She tries to argue that there must be kind orcs somewhere in the world. Still covered in blood, Leon tells her that the only kind orcs are the dead ones. Back when the gates first opened on Earth, a flood of orc survivors made their way through. At first, humans were actually welcoming, hoping for some kind of peaceful coexistence. But the orcs couldn't adapt and just turned into demonic threats instead. They've been a major headache for Earth ever since. A small scouting robot finally reaches its destination deep in the woods. Leon looks over the area, noting that they can pull off a total wipeout from here. He tells Hanhari he's leaving the next step to her, while they both wear beanies to hide their hair colors. They're firing up a power core, pushing it to almost 100% capacity. The system starts redlining, and Hari looks pretty nervous as the core begins to fuse. They drop the rod into the water, even though Hari thinks the glowing thing just looks like a floater. Leon tells Hari and Sir Spinnet to listen up, because the real work starts now. He gives a chilling smile, declaring that the only good orc is a dead one. Down by the river, a tribe of orcs is busy bragging about their latest brutal kill. They think their fallen comrade is headed to some eternal warrior's paradise. Their leader, Groktar, calls for everyone to raise their glasses. To celebrate, they scoop up buckets of the river water, having no idea it's been tampered with. Groktar takes a long drink, eager to satisfy his thirst after the fight. He immediately notices something's off, saying the water feels itchy and strange. He figures it's just the taste of blood in his mouth and starts walking away. Suddenly, he collapses in agony, coughing and shaking as his body fails him. He desperately screams for a witch doctor while the others watch in shock. Within seconds, the entire camp is falling apart as orcs drop dead everywhere. The witch doctor is stunned, realizing this isn't any kind of magic he's ever seen. That's when Leon appears, his voice booming as he charges into the chaos. Leon rides through the camp, cutting down any orc still standing. He orders his team to eliminate every single one of the beasts without hesitation. Blood splatters into the air as the massacre continues in full force. System messages flash, confirming the Battle Axe tribe has been completely wiped out. The quest updates, making every orc in the area a target for Leon's knights. Hari checks her screen and tells Leon the quest parameters have officially changed. Leon is actually pleased. It means he can clear them all out at once. He walks through the camp, surrounded by the green glow of the lingering poison. The witch doctor spots them and realizes they're the ones who cursed the river. He calls them cowards, outraged that they didn't fight with honor. Leon just finds it insulting that an inferior creature is trying to talk to him about honor. The shaman begins to chant, calling on Gokrak and releasing a wave of dark energy. Leon isn't impressed, even as the orc starts swinging around magically charged chains. He lunges forward, his own weapon glowing with intense divine power. A massive beam of light shreds through the orc's defenses in an instant. The shaman is pulled into a dark, swirling whirlpool as his life fades out. A black, tentacled sphere of energy starts forming where he stood. Hari asks what it is, and Leon dismisses it as a crude offering from an uncivilized race. The shaman's desperate sacrifice pays off, as the void cracks open to reveal a massive green arm and a single, chilling eye looming over the battlefield. The system finally drops the big objective: eliminate Gokrak, the enchantment god orc. The boss is fixated on Leon, convinced this human is too dangerous to be left alive. He senses a divine power protecting him and realizes he's dealing with someone on his level. Leon just stares back, unimpressed that this thing thinks it's protected by a god. He's actually offended that a monster like this would even dare compare itself to a deity. Declaring himself the king of Lionheart, he decides he's done tolerating Gokrak's existence. The orc screams back, calling him an inferior mortal and refusing to yield. Gokrak brings down a massive fist, trying to crush Leon into the dirt. But Leon doesn't flinch, meeting the attack with a strike of his own. The boss suddenly recognizes the blade. It's the Holy Sword of Radiance. He finally realizes he's facing the legendary orc executioner and the only survivor of a nightmare world. Panicked, Gokrak decides it's time to bail while he still has the chance. Leon catches up instantly, mocking the guy for being the best a god can offer. The orc tries to act tough one last time, promising to avenge his comrades. It's a hollow threat. Leon slashes through him, ending the fight right there. He sighs, admitting the guy tried, but some things just shouldn't stay alive. The system pings with the good news. All hidden quests are cleared. The whole party gets some massive permanent buffs, extra damage against orcs, and physical resistance. One of the guys is stunned because tankers usually have to work way harder for that kind of resistance. The squad can't believe their luck, especially with a 30% damage boost on the table. Leon snaps them out of it, shouting at everyone to start collecting the loot. He tells them to move fast because the winners deserve the spoils of war. Hanhari looks at the boss's massive severed arm and asks what they should do with it. The godly limb is just lying there, still packed with enchantment mana. The spirit of Arjun Majesty Lionheart appears, sensing the massive energy source. He tells Leon to use the Holy Grail to absorb all that power. Leon pulls it out, and the artifact starts glowing, hungry for the mana. It drinks every drop, turning the orc's power into fuel for Leon. He notes that even the orc's twisted worship is good for something. Anjak Protetia appears in his vision, wondering why he's pushing himself when he hasn't even set up a proper ritual. She tells him she can help recover the power of one of his sacred items with this energy. She's willing to respect whatever choice he makes for the kingdom. Leon looks at his options: the Holy Spear, the Holy Sword, Holy Grail, and Lionheart. He realizes the sword is still a bit too powerful for him to handle at the moment, so he decides to fully restore the Holy Grail instead. A massive explosion of light fills the dungeon as the artifact is reborn. The Grail shines with its true power, floating before the king. Leon takes it back, feeling pretty good about the upgrade. Suddenly, Hanhari lets out a scream, breaking the moment. One of the hunters is being snatched up by a drone that's wrapping him in high-tension wires. It's the Steel Knight drone, Sir Jagspinner, and it looks like the outside world is officially making its move. Leon tells the guy to watch his mouth before things get ugly. He doesn't hold back, calling him out as a straight-up loot thief. He orders Hanhari to go through the man's belongings. Hari gets to work while the thief tries to stall for time. She pulls out an orc warrior's heart, which is easily the most valuable thing in the whole gate. The guy starts screaming that he didn't steal a thing. Leon isn't in the mood for excuses and takes the guy's arm clean off with a magic blade. The thief's scream fills the air as the other soldiers just stand there and watch. Leon reminds him that he's part of his military now, and Earth's laws don't apply here. He makes it clear that his word is the only law they need to worry about. Back in his kingdom, thieves don't just get a slap on the wrist, they lose their hands. The modern hunters are looking pretty pale, hearing about his brand of justice. But even with the scary rules, the buffs he gives are way too powerful to walk away from. Leon turns his attention to one of the armored hunters and asks for his name. A guy named Gu Daisung steps forward, clearly nervous but standing his ground. Leon asks him why he's bothered to come forward. Daesung actually asks if the thief can get his arm back. Leon says that would just defeat the entire purpose of the punishment. Daesung tries to explain that they've lived by different ideals and just learned the rules. Leon goes quiet for a second, actually considering the point. He decides it's a fair argument and tells the thief he's lucky. He brings out a golden chalice that starts glowing with insane power. He pours out the magic liquid, and it begins to work instantly. The thief's arm literally grows back right in front of everyone's eyes. Daesung is floored. This level of healing is way beyond what even an S rank could do. Leon tells the guy to get out of his sight before he changes his mind. The thief scrambles away, crying and thanking him through his tears. Leon gives the rest of them a choice: join the military or take their loot and go. For these guys, it's a no-brainer they're all staying for the chance. Leon gets a dark little smile and says they're starting training right away. They head back from the gate, with everyone shouting in excitement. Hari asks what the next phase of training is going to be. He just smiles and tells her it's time for some physical conditioning. A bit later, Daesung and his buddy are heading in, feeling ready to go. His friend warns him not to overwork himself, but he's already focused. Hari's voice booms over the area, announcing the arrival of Leon and Sir Jagged Spinna. Leon steps up to the podium in a sharp suit, looking every bit the professional leader. He drops a bombshell, telling them the Orc Gate was nothing but a simple test. He says he spotted various problems while watching them fight out there. From now on, they'll be following his kingdom's official army training manual. He explains that physical training is all about pushing muscles to the absolute limit. He quotes the giant slayer, Sir Gratus, and that smirk says, things are about to get brutal. Leon shares what he calls wise words, the idea that humans only get stronger the more they're beaten down. The hunters are left blinking in confusion, wondering who exactly he's planning to beat up. He gets fired up, yelling that soldiers protecting a kingdom have to train way harder than any farmer ever would. His eyes start to glow as he explains his brutal plan: to rip their bodies apart and then just heal them up later. The recruits are sweating buckets now, looking at him like he's completely lost his mind. But he doesn't give them a choice. He points at the crowd and commands them to start beating each other up right now. Leon tells the trainees to beat each other up until their muscles rip and their fists are broken. The hunters are horrified, calling the order complete nonsense. Leon just crosses his arms and asks why it would be nonsense. He holds up a golden grail, telling them they're lucky he's the guardian of the Holy Grail. One of the trainees, Mr. Gu, starts to notice something weird happening to his body. He realizes his injuries are healing instantly, and he's completely dumbfounded. Leon explains that the grail will regenerate their muscles and reset their bones as long as they're in range. He sets a 5-hour limit and orders them to break everything in their path. He emphasizes that there are no allies here, they must just attack and be attacked. Leon's eyes glow with a cold blue light as he warns that anyone still standing after 5 hours will have to deal with him personally. He leaves the training to his assistant and walks off, leaving the trainees questioning if this is even legal. The hunters stand frozen, realizing the nightmare is about to begin. Some of them try to laugh it off, but the vibe is pure dread. Hanhari, wearing a mechanical mask, scans the group and spots someone trying to slack off. A massive shockwave hits the crowd, sending hunters flying back. Hanhari's mechanical voice warns them to start fighting, or she'll use force. Chaos erupts as the hunters start brawling with everything they've got just to survive. This becomes the brutal daily routine for those who signed up to be Leon's knights. 9 a.m. They're already deep into the steelskin training, which is basically just getting punched repeatedly. 12 p.m. Lunch is served, and it's not exactly a feast. The trainees stare at a water dispenser, wondering where the actual food is. Leon confirms the menu. It's just water mixed with salt and sugar. The hunters look like they've seen a ghost, their energy completely drained. The manual is clear. Soldiers only get enough to stay alive until they've proven themselves. 1 p.m. Tactical training starts with Leon ordering them to stop him while he charges on horseback. He blasts through their formations like a freight train, scattering shields and bodies. 9 p.m. The day finally ends, and everyone just passes out where they fall. Mr. Gu groans in his sleep, his body still feeling the effects of the training from hell. Hanhari shows up with a surprise late-night snack of steamed sweet potatoes. The hunters literally cry while eating, having no idea this was all part of Leon's plan. Even after the group session, Mr. Gu stays late to practice his sword and shield work. He struggles with the weight of the gear, finding it hard to even swing his sword properly. He pulls out his phone to check his technique, realizing he needs to focus on his stabbing motion. A voice behind him calls out, "Wrong," making him jump. Leon is standing there in a clean white shirt, telling him to keep going. He tells the trainee to fix his posture and try the strike again. Mr. Gu lunges forward with a powerful stab. Leon repeats that it's wrong, his expression unreadable. He steps in and points out that Gu is lowering his shield during the attack, leaving his ally's shoulder exposed. Leon explains that a misplaced shield creates a gap, and a gap is a death sentence in battle. Mr. Gu argues that monsters aren't that smart and won't exploit a small opening like that. Leon's face darkens as he asks if the boy is really trying to lecture him on how to fight monsters. Leon explains that facing monsters requires multiple hunting methods and the ability to adapt to any unexpected situation. He leans back, telling the boy that such things can only be learned through real-life experience. Gu listens intently, as Leon adds that all he needs to do is hone a single talent to heighten his survival. Leon asks him directly if he dreams of being a knight. Gu is taken aback, stammering that a peasant like him couldn't possibly become an aristocratic knight. Leon tells him not to apply the logic of this world to his kingdom, as knighthood isn't just for aristocrats. He describes a knight as someone who voluntarily chooses a path of hardship for a noble duty. A vision of a legendary knight appears, illustrating one who protects the people and upholds the good with courage. Leon finishes by saying anyone who makes a divine promise to the goddess and the people can become a knight. Gu stares at him, completely moved by the king's words. Leon admits he was prejudiced before, but now he says Gu has the courage and character to earn his respect. Gu stands tall, a newfound resolve in his eyes as he takes in the king's praise. He firmly declares his wish to become a knight. The scene shifts to the United States Magic Tower branch, where a dark presence is brewing. Reynold Sherman, the tower master, bows frantically before a glowing purple crystal, shouting about his faith in his master's return. A demonic voice from the crystal promises to teach him wisdom and truth, provided he offers proper reverence and offerings. Reynold is confused when the entity tells him to cast a space transfer spell on the crystal first, intending to blast it into space in an emergency. The master screams in a high-pitched voice, asking if he's crazy and why he would voluntarily walk into heaven. The master's voice settles as he declares he has no intention of setting foot on a planet where that monster resides. He tells Reynold to find a way to kill Leon while he still hasn't built up an army. The master orders him to make sure he gets into the same gate as the king. The master's desperate plea hangs in the air as an image of a terrifying Leon slaughtering a monster appears, a silent prayer for the king to just die this time. Pantheon Guild's trainee graduation day is finally here. They're about to raid a yellow gate, which is pretty bold for a bunch of rookies. Hanhari realizes she and her little bot, Sir Yapi, are being left out of the main raid. Gude-sung sighs, realizing he's going to have to do all the heavy lifting, while Hari just cheers him on from the sidelines. Leon stands before the trainees, keeping his speech short. It's time for them to show what they've learned. The squad stands ready. Usually, a gate of this level would be suicide for new recruits. But once they're inside, Leon knows they'll understand what it truly means to be a soldier of the Lionheart. Leon gives the final command, and the Pantheon squad begins their march into the portal. 49 D-rank hunters, 1 observer from the association, and the king himself step through the gate. Hari tells Sir Yapi not to stress. With Leon leading the way, there's no way anything goes south. But the little bot's sensors pick up a red flag immediately. Something's not adding up. It runs a quick head count. Leon, 49 trainees, and 1 observer. That should be 51 people total. The gate's log pings 52 entries. Hari is confused, but the bot is already on it. A thermal scan confirms the nightmare. There's an extra soul hiding in the formation. Sir Yapi initiates an emergency response and launches toward the intruder. A beam of light streaks through the crowd as Sir Yapi attacks. Hari screams for the bot to wait, but something catches her off guard. Suddenly, a shockwave knocks Hari back as she chases after the bot. She hits the ground hard just as the gate behind them starts to spiral out of control. The mana levels are spiking like crazy, and the portal begins to waver. The golden light shifts into a deep, bloody red. The gate is mutating. It's a fluctuating gate, the worst-case scenario for a bunch of trainees. Inside, they find themselves in a wasteland, facing a massive demon fortress. The trainees freeze up. This isn't just a dungeon. They've walked straight into a demon gate. A horde of demons charges at the small squad, ready to tear them apart. Leon just watches the chaos with cold, glowing eyes. He's not panicked at all. He barks out orders, telling the squad to raise their shields and get into formation. Gu, Daisung, and the others snap into action, bracing themselves for the impact. The squad locks together in a perfect Lionheart testudo. They aren't backing down. Leon yells for them to advance. The formation moves as one solid wall of steel. Gu Daisung is terrified. Moving forward into a demon army feels like a death sentence. Suddenly, Daisung's vision is flooded with system notifications. A buff has been activated. It's the Lionheart's aura. Leon just granted the entire Legion a massive list of reinforcements. The formation slams into the first wave of demons with a thunderous crash. Demonic hounds lunge, but the trainees hold the line, their shields unyielding. Even B-rank hunters would struggle here, but these trainees are holding on pure willpower. The knights start stabbing back through the gaps, dropping the demons one by one. Leon's voice echoes, commanding them to keep pushing forward through the blood and dirt. Then, a massive demon troll appears, towering over the formation. The trainees panic. A troll's attack is A-rank territory, there's no way a shield wall can block that. Squad Captain Gu Daesung braces for the impact, his eyes fixed on the giant. The troll's club slams down, but the force is surprisingly manageable. Compared to the brutal training sessions Leon put them through, this feels like a joke. They can win this. Sir Yapi doesn't waste a second, locking onto a target and opening fire immediately. The bot's high-tech blasts tear right through the monster's hide. Leon is caught off guard, wondering why the Association's drone is suddenly jumping into the fray. He gives the trainees a quick nod for their solid block before stepping up to finish the job. A single, concentrated slash cuts through the air, ending the battle in an instant. The trainees are stunned, they can't believe that massive troll is actually dead. Seeing their heavy hitter fall, the rest of the demon horde loses its nerve and starts to retreat. The rookies erupt in cheers, celebrating their first real taste of victory. The local soldiers approach, hailing the warriors for saving the Sparrow Kingdom from total destruction. But the celebration is cut short by a system alert. The entire kingdom is under a massive demon invasion. The trainees freeze as they realize the difficulty has just spiked to Demon King levels. They rush to Leon with the news, but the situation is even worse than they thought. One of the trainees points back. In a panic, the exit portal has completely disappeared. Leon remains calm, telling his squad to keep their heads and not act rashly. Sir Yapi identifies this as an unforeseen foreigner invasion, while Leon pieces together what happened. Gu Daesung explains the reality. They're trapped in a fluctuating gate. It's a freak occurrence where the gate's difficulty explodes, trapping hunters inside until it's cleared. Leon knows this is no coincidence. Someone intentionally lured them into this trap. Despite the change in stakes, Leon doesn't waver. The plan is the same, they're clearing this gate. He reminds his followers that he's already put dozens of great demons in the ground back in his own world. The trainees are in awe of his confidence, but Leon privately misses the divine power he once wielded. In his current weakened state, he can't guarantee an easy victory against a demon king. But for the sake of his men, he has to be the firm, dependable pillar of hope they need. Watching from the shadows, a cultist cackles through his scrying orb, mocking the king's human weakness. He snaps at his subordinates, refusing to rush the ritual while he has his own plans in motion. He's been nurturing a specific creature for over a century, using demons of desire to fuel its growth. The cultist looks toward the mysterious figure in the shadows, believing this is the weapon that will finally end the king. Once she awakens as the new demon king, the Night King's journey will reach its final, bloody conclusion. The Sparrow Kingdom was once a peaceful nation that took immense pride in its 1,000-year history. But that all changed when they found themselves in a desperate fight for survival. As demons overran the city, the last of the survivors retreated to the palace, clinging to the only ray of hope they had left. Back in the present, the survivor explains that this kingdom's fall is the core theme of the current gate. Leon listens intently as he's told that while all gates have different backdrops, this one is unique. Unlike others, this gate has a strict time limit for its quests. Normally, if you ignore the monsters inside a gate, a dungeon break happens. But here, the gate will actually close once the quest conditions are satisfied. Leon asks the guy's name, Kim Jin-soo, who responds with immediate respect for the king. Leon mentions he wasn't planning to step in, but since things are urgent, he asks if their plan changes if he and Sir Spinna join the raid. The guy looks a bit overwhelmed, but Leon just brushes it off, saying the association president probably saw this coming. Leon raises a finger, letting them know there's one more thing on his mind. He leans in and asks Kim Jin-soo what he knows about hidden quests. The survivor is caught off guard, wondering what exactly the king is planning to do. Leon's eyes glow as he makes his intention clear. He's going after the Demon King. Later that night, Leon observes that the demonic energy from a troll isn't giving him the results he needs. It seems he only has enough power for a very brief connection with the Pantheon. He puts a hand to his chest and calls out to Ariana, checking to see if she's doing okay. She asks if he felt it too, and Leon admits it took him a while to notice. He senses an energy in this gate that's completely different from the usual demonic presence. This strange power has seeped into the world so naturally that it's almost invisible. To stay hidden from Leon for this long, whatever being is behind it must be incredibly powerful. But it's weird. A being of that caliber should be radiating a much stronger energy than this. Plu is curious too, and wants to inspect this world personally. Ariana notes that they'll need a massive amount of energy to facilitate the goddess's descent. Leon tells her he's sure she doesn't need instructions on how to handle that. He glances at the Holy Grail on the table. There's a definite way to get this done. A carriage eventually pulls up to the massive, ornate doors of the Sparrow Palace. An old butler named Farco greets the group with a bow, welcoming them to the estate. He promises to serve them to the best of his ability and invites them inside. As they walk through the halls, Farco notes that the palace owner has a great sense of art. He explains that the palace reflects the kingdom's long history, dating back to the first queen. Farco points out the various queens they've served over the centuries, ending with the current ruler, Beatrice. Leon looks visibly annoyed, calling out the butler for gossiping about royalty like a common peasant. They reach the presence chamber, and the butler announces their arrival. The guards pull open the massive doors, revealing the grand hall where the queen is waiting. Leon walks in, his face set in a cold, determined expression. The room is packed with people, all eyes turning toward the newcomers as they approach. A man named Duke Archeum steps forward, offering Leon a knight position as a reward for his deeds at the palace gates. Leon doesn't even pause, telling the Duke he'd like to greet the queen before anything else. A veteran knight with a white beard stops him in his tracks, shouting for him to stay back. He reminds Leon that, as an outsider, he can't just walk up to the queen, no matter what he's accomplished. Kim Jinsu and the veteran knight captain watch the tension rise, hoping things don't escalate further. Duke Archeum is still yelling, but Leon keeps walking, treating the Chancellor's rage as mere background noise. His patience has officially run out. He stops and formally introduces himself as Leon Dragonia Lionheart, King of the Lionheart Kingdom. The Duke is left speechless, unable to believe what he's just heard. He finally snaps, pointing a finger and ordering the guards to seize Leon and drag him out. But Leon moves too fast, grabbing the Duke by the face and cutting his orders short. He towers over the terrified man, his eyes glowing with a cold divine intensity. With a single shove, he sends the Duke stumbling back and tosses him aside like trash. But something else seems to set him off, and he snarls in frustration, wondering what other nuisance is coming his way. Leon's got this nobleman cornered, and the guy is shaking in his boots. He's like, "You, what is the meaning of this?" Leon just gives him this cold smile. He mocks the dude for thinking he could actually hide his identity from a king. "Show yourself, you dirty demon," Leon says. The guy is literally drooling from fear at this point. The mask finally slips, and the man morphs into a massive, insect-looking demon right in front of him. It's a full-on infestation. Several others in the room shed their human skins and join the swarm. Leon isn't even breaking a sweat. He tells the lowly beings to stop panicking and just die. He gives the order to his men to assemble and fight as one. With a simple gesture, Leon prepares to end this little bug problem. A demon lunges, but Leon's faster, ready to cut through the darkness. He starts carving through them like butter, moving way too fast for them to keep up. Ricardo looks on, absolutely disgusted that these things were hiding inside the castle the whole time. Leon's blade is a blur, sending demon parts flying everywhere. Ricardo's blood is up, screaming for his men to kill every single one of them. Leon stands over the bodies and commands him to stop. He intercepts the veteran knight's blade, telling him to back off. Leon calls him out, saying his loyalty is making him neglect the safety of the royal family. Ricardo isn't having it. He snaps back that his only loyalty is to Her Majesty the Queen. Leon looks totally unimpressed by the knight's little outburst. He fires a beam of light into the air to remind everyone who's actually in charge. "I'm the king," Leon says. "I'm the one making the calls. Know your place." Ricardo is trembling with rage. He argues that the queen isn't in her right mind, and he's got the authority now. Leon looks out at the courtyard, sensing the corruption thick in the air, while demons watch from the shadows. He reminds the knight that a king doesn't lie. Ricardo realizes he's serious and asks what he wants. Leon's answer is simple. He wants full command over all the soldiers. He looks toward the silent queen on her throne, demanding the power to purge the evil. He tells her he'll resolve the issue himself, since she's currently powerless to do anything. The scene shifts to the Sparrow Kingdom Central Square, where a massive crowd is gathered around a bonfire. The people are terrified, sensing the tension but having no idea what's coming next. Leon steps up and introduces himself as the King of the Lionheart. He tells the crowd straight up that demons have possessed several people among them to start a revolution. To prove it, he grabs a random soldier and a girl by their heads. He tells them to toss themselves into the flames if they want to prove they're innocent. Before they can even react, he hurls them both straight into the fire. People are screaming in pure horror. The crowd thinks he's just a murderer. "He's gonna kill us all," someone yells. But then, the girl just stands there in the middle of the inferno, looking totally fine and confused. Someone points out that the soldier's body is definitely not human anymore. While the girl is unharmed, the soldier transforms and shrieks as he's incinerated by the holy flames. Leon explains that the flames only burn the evil. He's not playing around. He gives the rest of the crowd an ultimatum. Get in the fire or be slain by his sword. Terrified, the people start rushing the fire in a total panic. Leon covers his nose, disgusted by the literal stench of corruption coming from the crowd. The hidden demons among them are sweating. Their cover is blown, and Leon is ready to punish them all. Leon's voice booms across the square as he loses it on the monsters. "You mere demon!" he screams, his patience finally hitting zero. Bathed in the glow of holy fire, Leon demands to know how they dare pretend to be human or march as soldiers. He isn't just angry, he's offended. The demons are sweating bullets. One of them realizes too late that they didn't just pick a fight with a human, they picked a fight with a monster. Deep in some dark hideout, an unknown cultist watches the whole thing through a magic crystal ball. He realizes their entire infiltration plan just went up in smoke. Looking at Leon's divine aura, even through a projection, is enough to make anyone's skin crawl. The cultist is shaking so hard he can barely hold the ball. He's seen enough to know Leon is on a completely different level of terrifying. Leon stands before the citizens of the Sparrow Kingdom, using a demon tied to a stake to grab everyone's attention. He tells the crowd they have nothing to fear as long as he's around to keep this evil species from hurting anyone. The demon screams back, swearing that their destruction is just beginning. Leon doesn't want to hear it and immediately shuts the thing up. He turns back to the crowd, pointing at the dirty beast and labeling it the source of all their fear and failure. He starts listing off their problems: starvation, sickness, and family drama, and pins it all on the demon. He keeps going, blaming the creature for everything from gambling debts to why someone can't get married. The people buy into it, their anger boiling over as they start projecting all their personal failures onto the tied-up monster. The demon is baffled by the logic, but Leon just shuts it down again with a quick slap. With the crowd fully riled up, Leon paces the stage, reinforcing the idea that demons bring nothing but misfortune. He pulls out a flaming torch, claiming it's a gift of divine flames, from Petos, the god of war and fire. He scans the crowd and singles out a young boy with red hair, telling him to come up and take the torch. He hands it over, telling the kid it's time to make the demon pay for its sins. The boy hesitates, so Leon shoots him a cold look, asking if he's actually feeling sorry for the thing. That's all it takes, the boy shouts that his father died because of demons, and grips the torch with total rage. The demon tries to act tough, threatening to hunt them down even from hell. Someone delivers a solid punch to the face to make it stop talking. The red-headed boy lets out a scream and swings the flaming torch right at his enemy. Leon watches with an intense, blue glow in his eyes as the crowd takes its revenge. Elsewhere, we find another demon named Baltars, locked in a cage, looking completely miserable. He spent decades as a demon, but he never expected his career to end up in a place like this. Suddenly, a small mechanical drone floats up to the bars of his cage. Baltars is just confused, wondering how he's supposed to corrupt a machine. The drone, Sir Spinna, ignores the taunt and just demands information. The demon just laughs in its face, refusing to listen to something he considers inferior. Meanwhile, armored guards stand by, ready to step in if things get messy. He tells the machine to just kill him, confident that he'll just come back later anyway. His confidence starts to waver when the machine doesn't react to his threats. A knight walks in, carrying a large wooden tub, and Baltars realizes this is about to get painful. Sir Spinna looks into the tub, calculating the most efficient way to get some answers. The machine lights up, signaling that it's time for some water-based interrogation. It dunks the demon's head straight into the tub without a second thought. Baltars comes up gasping and cursing, trying to remind them exactly who he is. Sir Spinny doesn't care about his title and goes for another round of dunking. The demon starts to crack, crying out that he doesn't know anything, as the machine labels him uncooperative. After enough rounds, Baltars looks completely broken, with the machine noting he's provided 30,000 characters of info. But Sir Spin isn't satisfied yet, pointing out that he's still falling short of the average amount of data they get. Baltars loses it, screaming about how he's supposed to know what the other guys said. Eventually, he gives up and begs to know what else he needs to say to make it stop. Leon sits nearby, listening to the report that the demon's story finally matches up with the others. He gives Sir Spinna a small smile, clearly pleased with the result. Outside, the city burns as the screams of the guilty fill the air. Leon calls it a lovely song of justice. Leon looks completely drained, sweat beads rolling down his face as he stares off with an intense, unblinking focus. He's sitting alone in the dark when a glass suddenly shatters at his feet, spilling red liquid all over the floor. Sir Spinna hovers nearby, reporting that the king is suffering from a spike in heart rate and chest pains. The king doesn't care about his health. He's too busy being disgusted that evil species are allowed to exist on his land. The little drone asks for a solution, and then suggests they just eliminate the source of the discomfort without delay. That's music to his ears. Leon cracks a wide, manic grin and agrees they need to get rid of the cause. Since demigods and machines don't feel exhaustion, Leon smashes straight through a window to get moving. He charges into the night air with Sir Spinna trailing behind, ready for a late-night outing. Sir Spinne stands alone in a scorched, demon-infested landscape, gripping a glowing purple orb. He faces a group of sinister figures, warning them that mortals are easily corrupted and to be wary of those who serve the demons. Suddenly, Androgen, a massive, six-armed demon, looms over the group, furious that they've intruded upon his venue of entertainment. Sir Spinne senses an overwhelming evil energy radiating from the demon, but a voice warns him not to look directly at the crown. He identifies the creature as Androgen, the great demon of pleasure and corruption, despite the demon's mockery of his backbone. Through the purple orb, Androgen scoffs, clearly unimpressed by the old mage's presence. Sir Spinne remains calm, telling Androgen he has an offer that the demon won't be able to refuse. The six-armed beast screams at him to know his place, refusing to listen to a mere beast. Unfazed, Sir Spinne points out that Androgen's lord and most of the great demons are already dead, asking if the demon really thinks they're on equal footing. Androgen snaps back, claiming that Sir Spinne's own kind died out as well, and telling him not to be so arrogant. Sir Spinne reminds him of the Great Ascension from 180 years ago, where it wasn't just the demon's lord who perished. He remembers the merciless slaughter that took place back then. It was a century and a half ago when the five evils united for the first time in an attempt to take over the world. But the outcome of that alliance was nothing short of catastrophic for the demonic forces. 3 of the absolute demon lords were completely annihilated in the conflict. A memory of Leon flashes by a reminder of the time 10 million demons were wiped from existence. Sir Spinne declares himself a survivor of that hellish, heaven-like place, his eyes glowing with the weight of the past. Androgen is stunned, demanding to know if the mage truly witnessed what happened there. Ignoring the demon's shock, Sir Spinne calls them beasts, driven by instinct, and repeats that his offer is one they can't turn down. Furious, Androgen vows to drag the baboon, presumably Leon, into the deepest pit of suffering. The demon laughs, confident that even if the mortal woman holds on, her time is almost up. Back in the present, Ariana is suspended in a magical trance, her form radiating a brilliant holy light. Sir Spinne asks if the ritual is complete, noting that this was their most effective method for extracting information. He calculates the odds, stating that Androgen has a 7-3 advantage over their target. He wonders if his own intervention as an S-rank mage would guarantee a victory for their side. Androgen, still present through the orb, calls him a coward and tells him to stay back. With the plan set, Sir Spinne looks for his next destination, and the orb points him toward the corpse harvesters in the palace forest. He enters the dark woods, sensing something lurking in the shadows. A grotesque corpse harvester emerges from the trees, its eyes wide and hungry. Before the monster can strike, it's hit by a sudden, violent force that leaves Sir Spinne trembling in terror. The creature is dragged away, screaming in agony as it's pulled into the darkness. Sir Spinne is left panting, the silence of the forest feeling more heavy than before. Leon's voice suddenly cuts through the air, asking if he's finished, making the old man jump out of his skin. Behind Leon, the forest is filled with the bodies of defeated enemies, all suspended in the air by glowing blue threads. Leon looks around, suspecting that more of the monsters are still hiding nearby. Sir Spinne is a nervous wreck, desperately checking if their stealth magic is still working. He's baffled by how Leon managed to approach without making a single sound. The king explains it's the divine law of silence, a knightly technique that can even mask the thunderous sound of galloping horses. Sir Spinne's relief is short-lived as he senses a new, unpleasant energy gathering in the area. Leon looks off into the distance, sensing that the enemy is indeed close by. He notices Sir Spinne's reaction and asks what's bothering the mage. A small surveillance drone confirms Leon's suspicion, pinpointing more targets at location 4B17. Leon decides they've seen enough for now and gives the order to move out. He heads back toward their camp, leaving Sir Spinne alone to ponder over the orb's findings. A humble wooden tub of hot water is waiting for him when he returns. After rinsing off the grime of battle, Leon stands by the window, gazing out at the star-filled sky. His mind is still racing, thinking about the demons of pleasure and corruption that have taken over this region. He can still see the image of their massive, dark city, a place crawling with perverted creatures driven by twisted desires. Even the drone struggled against the sheer number of high-ranked elites guarding the area, confirming that a great demon is definitely leading them. He wonders why such powerful beings would bother taking up residence in a gate like this one. Even here, the thick, metallic scent of blood clings to the air, making it impossible to truly relax. Suddenly, he feels someone behind him. He's shocked that he didn't notice her presence until she spoke, telling him he looks tired. Ariana steps into the light, her silver hair shimmering as she gently asks him why he won't let himself rest. Inside the survivor's dream, a woman greets Leon, addressing him as either a king or a knight. Leon stands there shirtless, looking totally unimpressed by the mystical welcome. He has to admit, though she is undeniably beautiful, she carries herself with a natural grace that feels like it could be the downfall of anyone who stares too long. Leon starts getting dressed as he listens to her talk about the brewing conflict. She introduces herself as Beatrice Alighieri Sparrow, the queen of this small kingdom. Leon gives his full title in return, the King of the Lionheart Kingdom. He admits he didn't realize she was royalty when she first approached him. She tells him not to be so wary and steps a little closer. She says she just wanted to personally thank the man who saved her realm. Leon isn't easily swayed. He points out it's a pretty strange time for a noble lady to be making visits. She hugs herself, admitting that she's constantly being watched. According to her, the general and his knights are basically keeping her prisoner in her own castle. Leon remembers the general, but the guy didn't strike him as someone capable of betrayal. She grabs Leon's hand, pleading for a favor because they're running out of time. Leon keeps his guard up, telling her he'll hear her out before making any promises. Her request is extreme. She wants him to kill the general and all his knights. If he does it, she'll hand the entire kingdom over to him as a reward. Before Leon can react, she warns him that the general is already hiding nearby. Suddenly, the doors fly open, and the general, Ricardo, marches in with his men. He apologizes for the late intrusion, but says he's entering the room regardless. Ricardo knows it's rude, but claims the situation is too urgent for formal manners. Leon mentions he was just having a chat with the queen. The general isn't even fazed, saying she's always wandering off in the middle of the night. Leon asks why they'd leave a royal alone when demons are crawling all over the kingdom. Ricardo scoffs, claiming the demons don't bother attacking at night. Leon knows that's a total load of bull stuff. He knows for a fact that demons don't care about what time of day it is. It's clear this guy is hiding something, and Leon is starting to catch on. Ricardo bows, saying he needs to get back to his post and get some rest. Leon thinks back to the queen's claim about being held against her will. The general leaves him with a warning. This isn't a matter for outsiders to worry about. Leon stands alone, realizing that this whole place is incredibly suspicious. He decides the only way to find the truth is to investigate the lower levels. He calls out for Sir Spinna, and his mechanical companion flies in through the window. He tells the little bot there's something specific he needs it to scout out. Down on the battlefield, a demon leader orders his troops to slaughter everyone in sight. He promises 100 slaves to whoever is first to scale the castle walls. The demons charge forward, completely caught up in their own bloodlust. But then a massive beam of light slams into the ground, obliterating their front lines. A holy sword embeds itself in the earth, incinerating everything nearby in a flash of divine fire. As the demons are vaporized, their souls are pulled away by the blade's overwhelming power. The souls of the demons scream as they're dragged into the light, begging for their lives even though they never showed mercy to anyone else. Leon holds the glowing grail, which is radiating a terrifying amount of holy energy. He stands tall on the ramparts, a silhouette against the blinding light of his own power. He looks down at the terrified survivors, calling them nothing more than disgusting insects. He declares that as a king, he's going to teach these evils a lesson on behalf of the Pantheon. With a dark grin, he tells them they're about to find out exactly how precious life is. The demons can only stare in horror, completely unable to fight back against this level of power. A massive, fiery lion manifests behind him, echoing the king's own righteous fury. Far away from the main battle, a soldier calls out to General Ricardo. Ricardo is deep in the castle's underbelly, saying the outsider will handle the defense for now. His only concern is the seal, asking his men if everything is still working as intended. He marches through the damp tunnels, telling his knights that they're almost at their goal. He mutters about finishing something that's been building for 100 years of resentment. Suddenly, the general stops and looks up, sensing a presence in the darkness. He's right to be suspicious. Sir Spinna is clinging to the ceiling, emitting a soft chirp as he records their every move. Smoke rises from the wreckage of a battlefield under a haunting red sky. The survivors lead a line of shackled demons across the desolate plains. Han Jong-min watches the prisoners, looking a bit exhausted from the long fight. He approaches one of the captive women, telling her to be careful. He remembers how dangerous even a captured demon can be, just as he gets close. The woman, looking bruised and battered, begs him to untie her ropes. She flashes a suggestive smile, promising to do something good for him if he helps. She leans in, trying to use her charms to cloud his judgment. But a system prompt flashes. Leon's passive buff has activated his corruption resistance. The beautiful woman vanishes, replaced by a pathetic, one-eyed, gray demon. Han Jong-min doesn't hesitate and slaps this hoe to oblivion. The demon is stunned, unable to believe a human just brushed off its seduction magic. Shaking off the lingering effects, Han Jong-min realizes he almost got played. Leon steps out from the shadows, and the demon immediately freezes in fear. He looks down at the creature with total contempt, asking about the commotion. Han Jong-min points a finger at the demon, cursing it for the trickery. Leon is insulted that such a disgusting thing thought it could tempt his soldier. The one-eyed demon trembles, pathetically begging for a shred of mercy. Leon isn't interested and delivers a brutal kick that sends the demon reeling. Another demon watching the scene realizes their new captor is more ruthless than they are. The column of knights and prisoners continues its march through the city streets. Han Jung-min rides alongside Leon, mentioning that something feels strange about this victory. Despite the victory, the local citizens look completely drained and indifferent. Leon explains that corruption is easy, and even a weak demon can rot a human soul. He knows that to the people, one victory doesn't mean the end of their nightmare. A mother and child look on with hollow eyes, clearly having lost all hope. To fix this, Leon orders that the citizens themselves must be the ones to execute these demons. They arrive at the castle, but it's strangely quiet for a victorious return. Leon smirks, knowing that the real game is just beginning. He gives our robot friend a message of approval after he succeeded in his mission. 2 guards stand watch over a heavy, locked door in the castle's depths. Leon marches right up to them, ignoring their frantic calls to wait. One guard tries to block him with a spear, telling him this area is strictly off limits. Leon just flexes his aura, and the force of it sends the guards flying against the walls. He doesn't even look back as he tells his men to follow him inside. The group heads down a dark winding staircase into the bowels of the castle. Han Jung-min is worried about the consequences, but the knight captain tells him to just roll with it. Leon reaches a clearing and calls the others over to see what he's found. Deep underground, they find a massive cavern with a glowing, curtained bed sitting in the dark. Leon realizes this must be the secret the queen was so desperate to protect. He strides forward into the light, even as the air around the bed begins to shimmer. He pulls back the veil to find someone lying there, the source of the hypnotic aura. Han Jung-min and the other soldiers are instantly spellbound, their faces turning a deep red. Lying on the bed is a woman of ethereal beauty, surrounded by a strange, pulsating glow. Even the veteran knight captain is mesmerized, staring blankly with a dazed expression. Leon Dragonia Lionheart roars for them to resist, commanding them not to let the dark energy take hold. He realizes his passive aura isn't strong enough to counter this specific type of magic. To snap them out of it, Leon starts physically intervening, knocking the sense back into his men. He delivers a sharp blow to the knight captain, forcing his mind to clear from the trance. Han Jung-min managed to wake himself up by stabbing a dagger into his own leg to use the pain as an anchor. Impressed by the soldier's resolve, Leon pulls out the Holy Grail and tells everyone to breathe deeply. The knight captain watches the king with newfound respect, amazed by his mental fortitude. He notes that Leon is the only one who seems completely immune to the queen's beauty. Leon acknowledges the observation, finally understanding the true mystery of this chamber. He looks back at the gathered knights, relieved to see that they're finally standing their ground. The captain explains that survival in this castle requires building up a tolerance for the queen's presence. Leon looks at a portrait of the queen, realizing her beauty is actually a magic similar to a curse. It reminds him of a high-ranking demon from his past world known as the Lady of Pleasure. However, he's confused because he doesn't sense any actual demonic energy coming from the queen herself. To find out what's really going on, Leon drops a purple petal into the grail and prepares a ritual. Violet light erupts from the vessel as he calls upon the divinity of dream and death. He prays for a divine blessing, hoping to reveal the secrets hidden in the shadows of the castle. Ariana agrees to help him out. She manifests her full power, answering the King of the Lionheart's call. Leon pays his respects to Plu, the goddess of dreams and death. Ariana steps out of the light, telling him she's arrived as requested. She can feel the corruption demons have really made a mess of this place. They're weaving a twisted reality deep within this eternal dream. Ariana commands them to show their true faces. Her lantern flares up with a purple, divine glow. Leon's eyes sharpen as the fog begins to lift. The memory starts to manifest, showing armored figures from the past. A dark, gothic city rises from the shadows. The mental dive is intense, shattering the survivors' subconscious barriers. An undead knight stands at the center of the chaos. Leon finally gets why he couldn't spot the enemy. It was perfectly hidden. This isn't just a gate, it's an authority, capable of building its own world. The people in the dream are still desperately trying to protect their queen. Ariana notices something off. This knight isn't acting like a typical corrupted soul. Leon starts to wonder if this nightmare actually originated from the queen herself. The Death Knight, Geoveric, drops down from the sky to challenge him. He lands a heavy blow right on Leon. Leon just smirks, completely unfazed. He blocks the massive sword with ease, sparks flying everywhere. The impact sends a shockwave through the area as they lock blades. Leon asks him if he's really okay with throwing away his knightly honor. Geoveric laughs, admitting that honor is something he left behind ages ago. He tells Leon it's time for a proper one-on-one duel. They exchange a flurry of strikes, neither one giving an inch. Leon acknowledges the guy's strength, even if he's a walking corpse now. He shouts that a knight with distorted pride can't protect a thing, then slams his sword down. A pillar of holy light erupts, consuming everything. Leon stands calm in the middle of the destruction. Geoveric is floored, shocked that his entire guard was wiped out in a single move. He looks up at Leon, finally seeing the king for who he is. Leon tells him it's time to snap out of this pathetic fantasy. He prepares to end the fight once and for all. But he can't shake the feeling that something is seriously wrong with this picture. He remembers the queen and why she would have wanted them dead. He looks at the fallen woman and wonders if she was ever really the villain. Leon demands the knight speak the truth. He wants to know exactly what was done to the queen. Geovric finally cracks and admits she made a deal with a demon. The flashback takes us back to the ruins of a once great kingdom, where the silver-haired queen sits alone among the bodies of her people. She's completely broken, her face and clothes stained with the blood of those she couldn't protect. A demonic figure appears from the smoke and offers her a way to save her people, but it comes with a heavy price. The demon's deal requires her to harbor the essence of corruption and relive this massacre every day for 100 years. He holds out a pulsing orb of dark energy, promising that if she isn't corrupted by the end, he'll save her kingdom. With her world already on the brink of ruin, the queen felt she had no other choice but to accept the offer. She took the orb, unknowingly walking straight into the demon's trap. 5 years into the deal, the corruption began to take hold, driving the surviving subjects to a state of manic madness. The queen looked at her own hands in horror, wondering what kind of nightmare she had brought upon herself. The demon just smiled, knowing he'd crafted a contract with absolutely no loopholes for her to exploit. If any of them tried to end their lives to escape the contract, they'd simply become spirits bound to serve him for eternity. Watching her people suffer day after day, she slowly began to lose her grip on reality. General Ricardo Buns watched her deterioration, realizing the essence of corruption was seducing her soul. 50 years into the 100-year deal, even the general found himself struggling to reject his darkest desires. Seeing no other way to save the queen, General Ricardo Buns made a drastic and final decision. He gathered his knights and told them that as long as they were alive, they would eventually succumb to the corruption. He ordered his men to commit mass suicide, believing it was the only way to stay pure and protect their queen. They pledged their eternal allegiance, choosing to die as soldiers rather than live as monsters. But by going against the demon's contract, they were turned into wandering spirits, bound to the netherworld as servants of corruption. Ricardo Buns was reborn as a spectral knight, fueled by a single undying command: protect the queen at all costs. The skeletal knight explains that they chose to become death knights just to stay loyal and resist the queen's temptation. They've been at this for a long time. They had to seal her away 80 years ago, doing whatever they could to keep her safe in a deep sleep. A vision of Queen Ariana appears, looking peaceful and untouched by the chaos while she rests in her eternal slumber. Leon realizes their loyalty is absolute, which is why Ariana wanted him to be the one to finally put them out of their misery. Ariana's spirit manifests, her eyes glowing as she asks Leon if he can feel the heavy weight of their devotion. Leon gives a firm look and confirms it. He's ready to do what's necessary. Deep in the distortion, the demon of pleasure, Androgen, is reveling in his own dark aura. Leon doesn't waste any time. He commands the fallen soldiers of the Lionheart to rise up and end their long sleep. The nearby hunters are caught completely off guard, staring in shock as Leon starts pulling an army from the shadows. Suddenly, they're inside an illusion of a massive castle siege where the guards are screaming that the enemy is already here. Leon stands in the middle of the chaos while a soldier panics, reporting that demons have breached the castle walls. A massive wave of demonic hounds and monsters comes charging through the gates, outnumbering the defenders 10-1. One young soldier refuses to run, stepping forward into the path of the oncoming swarm. He orders the men to lock their shields and hold the line, no matter what happens next. The king's orders were clear: maintain their positions and deter the enemy at all costs. The shield wall takes a massive hit from flame-shrouded demons, but they manage to keep them back. Androgen looms over the fight, laughing as he tells his slaves to struggle and find pleasure in their pain. He triggers a frenzification spell, a twisted buff that turns agony into a morbid kind of ecstasy for the demons. The courtyard turns into a bloodbath, as wave after wave of monsters throw themselves at the human line. Leon lets out a roar that echoes through the streets, calling for his steed to join the fray. He unleashes a massive blow, the golden light of his divinity scattering the demonic horde like dust. A soldier grunts as he tries to keep a demon's claws from tearing through his armor. It's a desperate struggle. The scale of the attack is terrifying, with hundreds of the creatures crawling over every inch of the wall. Leon clears a huge path with one strike, sending monsters flying through the air in a shower of golden sparks. He shouts for the Lionhearts, and the sheer power of his voice seems to shake the entire castle. Leon knows Androgen is strong because of these numbers, even if the demons themselves aren't all that skilled. With the demon's buff, they're becoming a real nuisance, slowing him down when he needs to be moving. He looks up at the massive silhouette looming over the city, wondering if his current power is actually enough to end this. He quickly pushes that doubt aside. There's no room for hesitation now. He cranks his divinity to the max, his body becoming a pillar of blinding light that cuts through the darkness. Leon turns to the skeletal knight, ordering him to lead the charge forward. The Death Knight mounts his undead horse, his cape billowing as he leads his own ghostly force into the illusion. Spectral riders charge alongside the castle defenders, a combined army of the living and the dead. Leon watches the charge with a small smirk, glad to see the knight has finally woken up from his dream. The skeletal knight rides past, acknowledging that his loyalty to the queen is still the only thing driving him. He calls Leon a king of foreign lands, and admits they've already suffered more losses than they can handle. But if Leon is the one who can finally change things, he's willing to put his faith in him. The knight stops his horse and looks back, his hollow eyes fixed on the man who gave his men a second chance. He declares they'll place their bets on Leon, and he'll show them exactly what a true king can do. Leon stands silent for a beat, the golden fire of his power flickering around him like a cape. He calls on the divinity of war and fire, taking a step forward as his foot ignites with holy energy. At this moment, he's a symbol of hope that's about to burn this entire demonic nightmare to the ground. Leon looks totally locked in, his eyes glowing as the fire of his divinity starts to surge around him. He drops a literal pillar of holy fire right on top of the demonic army, vaporizing anything that gets too close. One of the knights watches him in awe and worry, knowing that the king is still carrying the entire burden of this fight on his own shoulders. They realize that without Leon leading them, the light of hope in this dark world would eventually just flicker out. But Leon just offers a confident smile, promising that he'll always be the one standing at the front of the line for them. He'll continue to be their shield and their strength, holding back the darkness until the day they're finally strong enough to stand on their own. Leon calls upon the paradise of the dead, and a massive, glowing spirit of a warrior manifests behind him. The demon army watches in silence, paralyzed by the sudden surge of divine pressure filling the room. He announces himself as the Lionheart and summons Pedos, the horseman of war and fire. A phalanx of spectral knights appears from the light, summoned to join the fight. Leon demands that the evil residing in this place be punished once and for all. A massive flaming golden chariot pulled by two lion-bull hybrids materializes out of thin air. Leon takes a moment to thank his previous horse, letting the spirit rest for now. He steps onto the chariot and gives a simple, absolute command: "Follow me." Standing tall in his suit, the king leads his army forward, promising absolute victory. The chariot acts like a lawnmower, tearing through the demon ranks with zero effort. One of the demons panics, screaming for the others to kill him before they all get wiped out. Leon mocks them as inferior beings who clearly don't understand the power of a real cavalry charge. He brandishes his weapon, explaining that a true charge is about the force of the sword and spear. The system recognizes his dominance, applying the strongest attacker buff to the king. The impact is devastating, sending demons flying like ragdolls in every direction. Androgen, the four-armed demon leader, can't believe his army is being shredded so easily. He orders the magic cannons to fire, desperate to sweep the intruders away. A barrage of purple energy beams rains down on the chariot from all sides. Leon isn't impressed, declaring there's zero honor in using such cowardly long-range weapons. A massive explosion rocks the area as the magic connects, lighting up the entire stronghold. He emerges from the smoke without a single scratch, shouting for the glory of the Lionheart. Androgen leaps into the fray himself, all four arms ready to strike as he screams for Leon to die. The demon misses completely, smashing the empty ground as he curses Leon's arrogance. Androgen looks around frantically, unable to sense where the king has disappeared to. He looks up just in time to see Leon standing on the chariot directly above him. A beam of divine light shoots down from the king's spear, pinning the demon leader to the spot. Androgen is losing it now, screeching at his subordinates to get in there and kill him. Leon jumps down and lands gracefully, standing alone in the middle of the horde. He issues a chilling challenge, telling them to just try and endure for 1 single minute. Androgen tries to hype himself up. It's only one person now. Surely they can take him down. But then, he watches his own elite soldiers being dismantled by Leon's spectral knights in the background. He starts to realize the person standing in front of him is on a completely different level. The demon finally makes the connection, asking if Leon is the one who killed Dothradon. Leon smirks, remembering the pathetic demon who walked around with a giant bag of fat. He tells Androgen he's about to share that exact same fate very soon. To the king, this guy just represents a few more limbs that he gets to shred. Desperate, Androgen summons a storm of dark blades, screaming that he will kill the king. He lunges forward, determined to end this once and for all with everything he's got. Leon just lets out a shout, calling them all pathetic and weak as he prepares to strike back. He leaps into the air as a massive amount of divine light gathers around him. A vertical pillar of pure holy energy erupts, cutting through the entire demon stronghold. Androgen can only grit his teeth as the light vaporizes him, ending his corruption for good. Androgen is starting to spiral, realizing that not only were all his attacks useless, but his own body is already failing him. Leon doesn't give him a second to breathe, leaping high into the air to position himself for a final, crushing strike. In a desperate gamble, the demon activates his ultimate move, the Crown of Desire, a mental trap designed to force any living soul into a state of savage madness. Nearby, the demon army watches in terror as the king's spectral knights continue their relentless slaughter, proving they're just as dangerous as their master. Leon just powers through the mental attack and brings down a massive vertical beam of divine energy that slices straight through the battlefield. Androgen is left staring in pure disbelief, his mind shattered by the fact that his inescapable illusion didn't even slow Leon down. Leon starts walking away, his divine aura glowing as he leaves the defeated demon in the dust. He doesn't even bother looking back, wondering how a low-level creature could ever think of tempting a king like him. Androgen is completely stunned, unable to believe his powers of seduction failed so miserably. Leon's expression is cold and detached. Turns out, he's completely devoid of the kind of desires the demon preys on. He spins around and delivers a devastating kick that sends the demon flying across the ruins. Androgen tries to beg for a second chance, but it's way too late for mercy. Leon stands over the wreckage, resting his sword on his shoulder, while the demon starts whining about fairness. He just stares him down as the demon calls him a coward for having divine help in their duel. Leon isn't interested in a lecture on honor, shouting that it's a concept humans don't waste on demons. He charges his sword with a blinding light, ready to finish the job once and for all. The demon's final words are a pathetic insult as the killing blow connects. A massive pillar of light erases the demon from existence, leaving nothing but a crater in the city. We shift back to Ariana, the wise mage queen, who remembers a time when her kingdom enjoyed total peace. But that paradise was short-lived once the demon invasion began. She watched her world crumble into a wasteland of fire and ash. Ariana used every bit of her magical prowess to hold back the tide. Standing before a massive ritual circle, she searched for any way to save her people from the slaughter. But no matter what she tried, the waves of monsters were endless. Every victory they claimed felt like a temporary illusion. The enemies were unkillable, returning to the fight even after they were struck down. Ariana realized the war was a lost cause from the very beginning. Standing alone on a field of corpses, she knew they would eventually return to finish her kingdom off. With total destruction looming, she was desperate enough for any kind of solution. That's when a hooded demon appeared, offering a deal that could supposedly save her world. The demon promised to stop the invasion if she agreed to harbor corruption and relive the collapse for 100 years. He promised to bring everything back to normal, and in her grief, she wanted to believe him. She reached out to seal the pact, knowing there was no other choice left. Ignoring the demon's sinister smile, she finally accepted the deal. A violent burst of magic consumed them as the contract was finalized. The kingdom was instantly cursed, trapped in a cycle between fake prosperity and absolute ruin. On the surface, it looked like a golden age had returned for the queen and her knights. But beneath that mask, the citizens were slowly drowning in the evil Ariana had allowed in. Once they fell to the corruption, there was no coming back for any of them. Ariana spent a decade rotting in regret, watching her people suffer in secret. She blamed herself for the fate of her kingdom, weeping over the nightmare she'd created. Looking at her darkened home, she just prayed for the whole thing to finally end. Back in the present, Leon's drone, Kirik, is busy scanning the demon's leftovers. The drone identifies the demon's crown and weapon as high-strength materials that might be useful. Leon notices the sword is actually cursed and trapping souls, as it starts whispering threats to him. He tells the drone to just go ahead and dismantle the cursed items. Suddenly, a familiar silver-haired presence manifests behind him. It's Ariana, and she asks Leon to show her the crown he just claimed from the demon. Leon hands over the demon's crown to Ariana, warning her that such a wicked object might dirty her eyes just by looking at it. Ariana examines the artifact, noting that it's a crown shared by all the great evils that peddle in pleasure. She explains how these demons use such power to lure the young into pointless, hollow illusions. Leon mentions he was just going to trash it, but Ariana thinks she might be able to extract something useful from the remains. She thanks him for his hard work, even offering a reward if there is something specific the king desires. Leon remains humble, bowing slightly and stating he was only doing what was necessary for his people. Ariana calls out to a figure behind Leon, telling them to at least say their greetings. Leon, however, isn't in the mood for pleasantries. A massive, pink-haired figure manifests a personification of war itself, looking down at Leon with a stern expression. War grumbles that Leon should learn to be a bit more honest with himself, though he begrudgingly admits the king did a good job. Leon turns to both Ariana and War, addressing them by their divine titles as he prepares to make a formal request. War is immediately curious, wondering what the king could possibly want this time. Leon gestures toward the fallen knights and asks the two deities to personally take their souls under their protection. War is instantly annoyed, asking if Leon really expects him to guide these outcasts to the paradise of souls after they've been cast from the cycle. Ariana thinks he's being a bit too harsh, but War insists that the cycle of life and death is his domain alone. She explains that because these souls oppose their death warrants, they've managed to escape the natural cycle of passing on. The queen of the fallen nation drops to her knees, desperately begging for her knights to be forgiven. She humbles herself before the gods, asking them to reconsider her request as their ruler. War remains blunt, stating that no one in the pantheon is going to accept souls as tainted as theirs. The queen's face falls, fearing that her loyal soldiers are doomed to wander forever. But Ariana smiles, telling the queen that their good deeds in life actually carry more weight than the bad. She promises to purify their dirtied souls and offer them a genuine second chance at life. Ariana tells the queen that this is the only way for her knights' souls to finally find rest. The offer comes with a catch. The queen must become Ariana's priestess and help the king of the Lionheart spread his faith. Ariana promises that her knights will be given a chance at reincarnation once the afterlife is stabilized. Realizing this is the only salvation for her people, the queen solemnly agrees to the terms. With the deal sealed, Leon and the queen stand before the massive gates, ready to depart. Leon leads the way out, followed by the queen and the long line of knights who are finally free. One of the knights approaches Leon to report on the state of the troops after the grueling battle. He reports that, while the Holy Grail has healed most of the wounded, they couldn't save everyone. The final damage report is grim. 6 brave souls have officially passed away. Leon looks over the fallen soldiers while the knight admits that in a war like this, such losses are considered minor. Leon prepares to perform a final ritual, telling his men that they will pray for their fallen comrades. He calls out to the gods of war and fire, announcing that his warriors have met an honorable end. He asks the deities to guide them, wash away their sins, and praise the courage they showed in battle. Turning away from the pyre, Leon declares that the Pantheon will never forget their sacrifice. A divine fire erupts, consuming the bodies as Leon's blessing ensures their souls reach their final destination. With the ritual complete, Leon begins to walk away, simply stating, "It's time to head back home." A system message confirms the absolute effect. The King of the Lionheart has blessed the dead and sent them to paradise. The Hunter Association sent every hunter they had to the site of the massive, unstable Red Gate. Everyone's on edge until someone finally spots them coming back. After a full week inside, Leon and Ariana emerge, having successfully cleared the dungeon. Back at HQ, Association President Oh Kang-hyuk gets the paperwork started for the survivors. He takes a quiet moment to mourn the hunters they lost during the raid. Oh admits it's a miracle anyone survived a fluctuating Red Gate with a great demon inside. Leon mentions he plans to visit the families of the deceased himself, which catches the president off guard. To Leon, they weren't just hunters, they were his soldiers, and honoring them is his duty. He knows he might face some anger, but he's ready to handle whatever the families throw at him. Leon tells O to release the footage and start gathering more hunters, because a demonic invasion is coming. The president nods, agreeing to get a formal plan and schedule ready as soon as possible. Leon then heads over to the Pantheon building, out in the Naju Plains. He's worried about how the demons are moving, and knows he needs urgent reinforcements. Since he can't wait around, he decides he has to go and get help personally. He focuses his energy and starts projecting his consciousness into another realm. Leon opens his eyes and finds himself standing in the middle of a sun-drenched, magical forest. He's greeted by a woman named Anjak Pratisha and a group of armored knights who immediately bow. They welcome him back, calling him the greatest Grail Guardian. Leon walks with them through the courtyard and asks Anjak how everyone is finding their new home in paradise. The great saintess smiles and says they're all doing great, thanks to his protection. Leon greets his old friends, Sir Gildas and Sir Antok, happy to see them looking well. One of the knights laughs, joking that he would have signed up for this place much sooner if he knew how nice it was. Leon then turns his attention to a man in a green tunic, addressing him as former king. This is Arjun Majesty Lionheart, the man who used to rule the kingdom. Leon asks the former king if any new souls have turned up in this realm recently. Arjun says it's been 180 years since they've seen anyone new, so Leon's arrival is a big deal. These Knightites are going crazy. He knows his successor wouldn't just drop by for a casual chat and asks what's really going on. Leon explains that he needs to speak with the gods and have a proper reunion. Arjun tells him he'll have to head to the forest for that and offers his winged horse, Pethelian, for the trip. Leon mounts the flying stallion and takes to the skies. As he flies over the vast fields, he thinks about how he'd love to run through them one day, provided he finds a successor. He eventually reaches the edge of a deep, ancient-looking woods. Leon calls out to the sages of the forest, identifying himself as the Lord of Dragonia and owner of the holy relics. He formally apologizes to the trees for intruding on their territory without an invitation. The very trees begin to shift and speak, mentioning every living creature is indebted to him, the Aura Farmer. They tell him the forest is always open to him and that they're flattered by his visit. Leon says he's actually here to meet the youngest among them, whom he considers a friend. A massive, ancient tree with a weathered face looks down at him. Leon addresses him as Gunrar and gets straight to the point he needs a seedling. Gunrar looks a bit surprised and asks if the king is really in that much of a rush. Leon places a hand on his heart and explains that his home, Earth, is currently facing a demonic invasion. He's certain the demons have already realized he's there and have started infiltrating his world. Gunrar notes that things are starting to rot from the inside out, just like they did back in the old empire. He tells Leon that as the king, he's the only one capable of bringing objects from this realm back to the living world. He hands over a glowing seedling branch, trusting Leon to look after it well. Leon thanks his old friend, grateful for the support after so many years. Gunrar tells him to take care and not to be in such a hurry to return to this place permanently. I don't think our boy is dying anytime soon. Back with his other companions, Gratas, Anjak, and Arjun are surprised he's heading out so soon. Arjun tells him to wait and offers him another gift before he goes. He explains that after talking it over with the others, they decided this was exactly what Leon needed for the coming fight. It's a set of legendary reins used to tame monsters, something Leon had buried with the former king centuries ago. Next up is Gratas, who steps forward with a thick, leather-bound book. Leon is stunned to see a legendary manual on how to train commoners to take down giants. Gratas figured Leon was having a rough time training new recruits, and thought this would help even the odds. Finally, Anjak hands him a glowing holy relic, explaining it can normally only be passed between saintesses. She hopes the charm will keep him safe until the day his holy sword is finally restored. Holding his new arsenal of relics, Leon gives a sincere thanks to his loyal subjects. He promises to put every one of these gifts to good use before finally heading back to his world. Back at the base, Leon stands outside a closed door and announces his arrival to the person inside. From within, Ariana asks why he's just standing there instead of entering, and Leon says he was waiting for her permission. Ariana smiles, telling him he takes things way too seriously, and invites him into the room. Like the video to see what happens next. Leon opens the door and finds Queen Beatrice, apologizing for the lack of a proper reception. She doesn't mind, noting that as a queen of a fallen nation, she shouldn't be too picky. Leon mentions that his divinity is naturally countering the corruption in her, though it won't clear it completely. The two sit down on the balcony for a quiet drink under the night sky. Beatrice assures him that she can handle it. She looks out at the city, remarking how completely different this world is from her own. Leon tells her she doesn't need to force herself to fit in. He explains that a king should always lead with their own virtues, no matter where they are. Beatrice smiles, finding that kind of bold mindset typical of an invader. Leon just smirks, noting that his approach is a bit different. He gets straight to the point and asks her to officially join him on his quest. Beatrice places a hand on her chest, saying she's indebted to him for saving her kingdom. But she has one condition they have to deal with: the archdemon of pleasure, Quay. Her eyes flare with a purple light as she declares she'll do whatever it takes to wipe that thing out. Leon crosses his arms with a confident grin, more than happy to agree to those terms. They clink their glasses together, sealing the pact. Later, Hanhari comes running up to join them. She immediately bows, greeting both of them with deep respect. Leon puts her to work right away, telling her to pour them some tea. He informs Hari that she'll be serving as Queen Beatrice's attendant for a while. Hari is completely flustered, protesting that she's a knight, but Leon insists a royal needs proper service. Beatrice turns to her, confirming if her name is indeed Hari. The queen senses a powerful, fiery energy coming from her, and asks to take a closer look at her skills. Leon tells Hari to draw her sword, framing it as a reward for all her hard work. Hari is caught off guard, but doesn't want to pass up the chance to show off for them. She unleashes a massive, flaming slash that lights up the night. Leon isn't impressed though, pointing out that her movements are way too big and wasteful. He takes a training sword and shows her how a real strike should be powerful but efficient. With a single, short swing, he sends a massive shockwave, tearing through the air. He casually tells her to go ahead and practice that 10,000 times a day. Beatrice chimes in too, noting that Harry's control over her fire mana is pretty lacking. She explains that instead of just coating the blade, she needs to condense the mana. Beatrice demonstrates, pulling the flames tight around her hand until they glow white hot. She gets into a stance, showing Hari what true concentration looks like. She tells her that for a killing blow, the release has to be perfectly timed. With a sudden thrust, she fires off a concentrated beam of fire that dwarfs anything Hari could do. Hari is left completely speechless, staring at the raw power of the queen. She bowed a solo Gilgamesh from fate. Beatrice just smiles and asks if she's got it, while Hari looks like her brain is melting. Cut to later, and Hari is slumped over at her desk in the office, looking absolutely exhausted. It turns out being a knight captain involves way more paperwork than she expected: reports, supply runs, and equipment checks. She panics about things like taxes and logistics, screaming that they definitely didn't teach her this at the academy. Suddenly, a little robot jumps onto her head, introducing itself as Surya P and offering to handle the accounting. Hari is totally sold, convinced that having a supercomputer on her head is the ultimate life hack for her career. Surya P doesn't waste any time, immediately crunching numbers on everything from hunter meal costs to equipment registration. He starts listing off complex tax benefits and agricultural laws, which is way more technical information than Hari's brain can handle. Honestly, she has no idea what he just said, but she's just relieved the work is finally getting done. Since they're on a roll, she asks him to help her pick out some servant clothes, specifically a maid uniform. The bot does a quick analysis and decides that based on historical data, A maid outfit is a perfectly logical choice for her new role. He offers to order the most reasonable one based on market trends, and a trusting Hari tells him to go for it. But Suryapi's idea of popular isn't exactly professional. He ends up buying a censored, spicy ribbon set that was a big hit with someone else's boyfriend. Han Suho adjusts his cape, looking sharp and ready for the day. Kim Jae-hyuk is surprised by just how many people actually showed up. Suho just smiles, saying it's only natural after what everyone saw. Just a few days ago, Leon paid a personal visit to the Hunter Academy. He told them he wasn't looking for soldiers, but for seedlings of future knights. The students are pretty confused when he mentions teaching them theology, along with combat. When one student argues they specialize in archery, Leon fails him on the spot for his attitude. He explains that divine law isn't just for priests, and offers to show them exactly what he means. Leon ignites a massive flame in his hand to prove the raw power behind his teachings. The display is enough to convince every single student in the room. Later, the guys are still reeling from the shock of seeing that kind of power firsthand. Suho points out that what they saw definitely wasn't normal magic. Chon Soyeon agrees, saying it's a total insult to even call it magic. Jae-hyuk teases her for being upset about Leon calling her a peasant. Soyeon shows them something on her phone, asking if they've seen the new Pantheon TV channel. The channel is blowing up with videos explaining how divine laws help hunters survive gates. Looking at the screen, Suho mentions he donated all his money to an orphanage. He wonders how Hanhari is doing while she's away on her dispatch mission. Meanwhile, Hari is stuck, standing around in a frilly maid outfit. She's freaking out over how short the skirt is, but Sir Yappy insists the big data says this is perfect. The boys arrive at the site, ready to check in on the team. Recognizing his sister's voice, Suho gets a bright idea to surprise her. Sir Yappy starts to announce guests, but a panicked Hari tries to shut him down. Suho doesn't wait and bursts right through the door. He freezes, absolutely stunned by the sight of his sister in that outfit. Hari turns bright red, desperately shouting that she didn't want to wear this. She catches a glimpse of Leon and stammers out a greeting, completely mortified. Jae-hyuk is physically shaking, with pure rage at the sight. He starts screaming at her to go get changed, clearly disgusted by the situation. Suryapi just carries on, focused on handing out salt water for the trainees' mealtime. Outside, someone gets sent flying as the chaos continues to unfold. It's official the reunion with his sister couldn't have gone any worse. Far away on Jeju Island, the atmosphere is a lot more grim. A dangerous red gate has opened up, swirling with ominous energy. A group of hunters steps onto the scene, ready to handle the threat. Hwang Jim-cheol arrives with his guild, looking for his sister to talk business. He admits their guild's finances are in a rough spot, and they need this mission to succeed. He runs into Lee Youngwon, and remarks that it's been a long time since they last met. Jumchel brings up how Youngwon disappeared after that government blackmail scandal. Youngwon can't even hide his annoyance at having his past thrown in his face. They both force a nasty laugh, but the tension between them is thick. Jumchel drops the mask, calling Youngwon a traitor and telling him to stay in his lane. A punk-style hunter sighs in boredom, wondering why they're even bothering with what looks like a bunch of kids. Hayuri of the Phoenix Guild silently appears behind her, making the junior jump out of her skin as she's told to watch her foul mouth. Outside the gate, Shin Nayeon and her team stand ready. They've gathered a strong squad, and with multiple high rankers on their side, they're ready to dive in. A massive black S-rank gate pulses with ominous red energy behind them. They've got 3 S-rank hunters, and one nearly there, more than enough for a lower-tier dungeon. Neon smirks, confident in their numbers. She's sure this clear will be easy work. Inside, the dream investigation shows a different story. A hunter stares in horror as his entire team is decimated in an instant. The ground is littered with the bodies of fallen soldiers and hunters who thought they were strong enough to conquer this place. A towering knight in full plate armor looms over the survivors, calling them insects for thinking they could save anyone. He introduces himself as Sir Geovric, the Honorable Grail Knight of Lionheart. He's not a monster, he's a legend from another world. Raising a massive warhammer, Geovric promises divine punishment. A system quest flashes before the survivors. Save those being slaughtered. The knight's helmet glows with a toxic green light. The clear condition is simple defeat the magnificent Geovric. Geovric demands to know why they've dared to harm the royal military, standing over the fallen with cold authority. One of the female hunters is completely lost, wondering what this canhead is even talking about. The red-haired leader tries to de-escalate, putting on a friendly smile and claiming it's all just one big misunderstanding. He lies through his teeth, telling Geovric that a knight attacked them first, and they were only acting in self-defense. He even tries to guilt-trip the knight, asking how he could dirty the goddess's name with such rash actions. He offers a fake apology on behalf of his squad, hoping to smooth things over and walk away. Internally, he's gloating. He thinks this legendary knight is just a pushover he can manipulate. But Geovric isn't fooled. His eyes flare green as he notes that killing 6 soldiers of the kingdom is a sin too severe to ignore. He looks out at the group, calculating the penalty for their lies. Since 6 of his men were killed, he decides he'll take 60 heads in return. Elsewhere, Gude-sung is touring a training facility, and he's not impressed by the rural location or the lack of modern amenities. He's baffled by the sight of people just drinking water in a simple cafeteria, wondering where the medical lounges are. Hanhari excitedly leads the group to the training grounds, but the students aren't prepared for what they're about to see. It's a literal brawl. Soldiers are beating each other senseless, shouting at their enemies to die in a display of pure brutality. Daesung asks if he's dreaming, but Hari just calls it standard training. Men are getting their jaws smashed as they scream for more power. This isn't a school, it's a war zone. Hari has a dark, gleeful look in her eyes as she explains that there's a deeper meaning to this violence. Leon Dragonia Lionheart appears, his presence alone silencing the chaos as he greets the visitors. He commands the students to take their seats, announcing that he'll be testing those who want to join his military. Hari offers him a seat with a wide smile. The students are weirded out by her calling him Your Majesty. Leon tells Hari to join the students. If she wants to become a mission knight, she has to aim for something much higher. He announces he'll be picking disciples from the most talented students in the group, teaching them personally. Hari leans in to warn Suho, telling him to never be rude to the king if he wants to survive the day. Leon's eyes glow with a chilling blue light as he prepares to judge their skills firsthand. He tells everyone to raise their weapons and attack him all at once. The test only ends when the last student falls. He assures them they won't die thanks to the power of the Holy Grail. A shockwave of energy ripples through the air as the students prepare to face the king. Looking at the 40 students, Leon taunts them, saying he'd be happy if even one of them could land a hit. He moves faster than they can blink, already closing the distance to his first target. With a single swift motion, he sends the first student flying through the air. The others can't even see his movements. Panic sets in as they realize their weapons are useless. One boy lies in the dirt, dazed and nursing a massive bump on his forehead. Leon stands over the wreckage of his class, thoroughly unimpressed. He expected them to at least be at the level of a knight-errant. Hanhari lies in the dirt with a massive bump on her head, gasping at the king's strength. To her, it felt less like a sparring match and more like a full-blown boss raid. The other students didn't fare any better, as Leon moved through them without leaving a single opening for a counterattack. Even attacking in groups proved useless, as he effortlessly brushed them aside. Leon stands tall among the wreckage of his class, his eyes glowing with an intensity that keeps the survivors pinned to the ground. Every strike he lands carries the weight of a natural disaster, sending shockwaves through the training field. He looms over one of the fallen students with a cold smirk, clearly enjoying the challenge. A faint glimmer of approval crosses his face as he admits the group isn't half bad. Once the students manage to pull themselves back together, Leon decides it's time to pick up where they left off with his lesson. He explains that while training a soldier is just a matter of pushing the body to its limits, the path of a knight is something entirely different. For those who manage to hold out until the end, their goal is to reach the level of a kingdom knight, while everyone else needs to step up their game by at least one rank. He begins breaking down the 5 levels of knighthood, starting with the knight-errant, those who haven't even been officially appointed yet. Above them are the kingdom knights, warriors who have actually proven their worth and earned their titles. Then there are the war knights, the commanders who lead those warriors into battle. The 4th level belongs to the mission knights, those who abandon everything to wander for decades in search of a divine quest from the gods. Leon reveals that he once walked that lonely path himself, completing a quest for goddess Ariana to eventually earn the rank of Grail Knight. One of the students speaks up, asking if the Grail Knight is the absolute peak of their hierarchy. Leon clarifies that there is one title above all, the Grail Guardian, a status reserved for the single knight who succeeds the King of the Lionheart. He stares them down, noting that to even aim for that title is to essentially challenge his own kingship. He warns them with a chilling calm that any challenger would be executed on the spot. With a subtle smirk, he tells them that now is their only chance to try, as his power has been significantly weakened in this world. He claims he's currently only at the level of a Grail Knight, which leaves the students reeling at how he could possibly consider himself weak. Gude-sung asks the obvious question: if this is him weakened, just how powerful is a Grail Knight supposed to be? Leon's mind drifts to the image of a Grail Knight effortlessly slaughtering hunters, noting that the true scale of their power is something they simply can't grasp. A girl with a side-shaved head snaps her eyes open, looking completely disoriented. She finds herself sitting on a bed of hay, clutching her head as a sharp pain shoots through it. She mutters a curse, frustrated that she can't recall a single thing about how she ended up here. A woman pulls back the tent flap and greets her, noting that she's finally awake. She introduces herself as Hildir, a shaman from the Woodsling tribe, with a surprisingly warm smile. Hildir explains that she was the one who stood her ground against the kingdom's ruthless soldiers. A muscular guy with a gold chain leans in, relieved to see his sister still in one piece. He asks how much she actually remembers about what went down during the battle. Visions of pulverized earth and a desperate retreat flicker through her mind like a nightmare, Her brother sighs, telling her she's missing an entire day's worth of memories. In her hazy memory, a smoke grenade goes off as a massive armored knight looms over them. The foot soldiers were relentless, making it nearly impossible for them to get away. She recalls the knight being absolute nightmare fuel, a real monster on the battlefield. Geovric chased them without stopping until the Woodsling tribe stepped in to help. She remembers the impact of a hammer hitting her face, which explains the massive headache. Apparently she's been out for 2 days, while the shaman worked to keep her alive. Hildur explains that Geovric, the Grail Knight, can curse his enemies to prevent their wounds from healing. The survivor pulls back her sleeve to see a glowing purple marking that helped her recover. The shaman says these unique tribal markings each provide a specific magical benefit. She's told that everyone is gathering for a meeting to decide their next move. The scene shifts to the center of the village, where hunters and tribal leaders are already waiting. Tribal Chief Beldy stands before them, recounting the horrors they faced. He talks about the Crown's army pillaging their land and slaughtering their people as heretics. With a pained expression, he reveals that 3 of their tribes have already been wiped out. When things were at their worst, the tribe turned to their gods for help. And that's when the heroes finally answered their call for salvation. Her brother points out that Geovric was insanely strong, even against a full S-class raid team. Hildur describes Geovric's armor as legendary, capable of taking hits from a giant bull. To make matters worse, his entire army shares his insane regenerative abilities. The hunters start brainstorming if armor-piercing items are their only way through. Hildur realizes that their tribe's molar marking might have just the effect they need. A status window displays the Mazer's molar marking, which grants massive armor penetration. A hunter looks at the glowing marking on his hand, feeling a sudden surge of confidence. Chief Beldy senses that their preparations are finally complete. The tribal members look on as the chief turns to address the hunters directly. He looks them in the eye and begs them to save his people from total destruction. Switching gears to Jeju Island, a student is absolutely losing it over seeing a real horse. Several horses graze peacefully in the rolling green hills of June Ranch. After the basic training was over, Leon Dragonia Lionheart brought the academy cadets here. Leon arrives at the ranch, his presence immediately commanding respect from the staff. He takes a look at the stock and compliments the quality of the horses they have on hand. The ranch owner is honored as Leon explains he's here to pick out a proper warhorse. Leon notes that a horse's value starts with its lineage, and these ones look like they've got good blood. He tells the cadets that for a true knight, a horse is a partner for life, not just a way to get around. He gives them the go-ahead to pick a mount they feel a bond with, and try to ride. Ariana arrives looking elegant under her parasol, with An Hye-yeon following close behind in a maid outfit. Leon thanks the queen for meeting him so quickly, offering his hand in a formal greeting. He asks if he can have the honor of helping her, while Ariana graciously accepts the offer. Hye-yeon watches the two of them with a look of pure, unadulterated judgment. They take a stroll through the field, taking a good look at the horses grazing nearby. Leon asks if she'd care for a ride, and she asks him for a recommendation. Leon surprises Hye-yeon by telling her she should pick a horse for herself as well. She starts eyeing a pretty white horse, thinking it's a perfect fit for her. Leon shuts that down immediately, telling her to take the muscular yellow one instead. He bluntly tells Hye-yeon to move aside so he can focus on the queen. He ignores Hye-yeon completely to help Ariana onto her horse, leaving the poor girl in tears. Ariana settles into the saddle, looking perfectly regal even on horseback. The riding session is cut short when Han Ju-hyuk comes sprinting across the grass, shouting for Leon. Leon looks back, annoyed that someone is causing a scene and spooking the horses. Ju-hyuk holds out his phone, showing an urgent incoming call from the association president, Oh Kang-hyuk. He explains that it's an emergency, and Leon tells him to just put the call through. Leon asks what the big deal is, and the president appears on the screen, looking stressed. Oh, Kang-hyuk warns that a major dungeon break is about to happen, and they need his help. Leon isn't interested in cleaning up their mess, but the president has information that might pique his interest. He explains that the field boss is none other than Geovric, the legendary knight of the goddess of life. Leon and the squad push deeper into the gate, riding through a wasteland that feels like a massive tomb. Hanhari pulls her reins, her face going completely pale as she looks ahead. She sees the horror's rows of bodies impaled on stakes and left for the crows. Back at the medical bay, Leon stands over a lone survivor who's clinging to life. The doctor suggests waiting for the sedation to wear off, but Leon isn't interested in a slow recovery. He turns to Queen Beatrice, needing her to get inside the man's head immediately. She steps forward, her eyes narrowing as she prepares to dive into his psyche. A purple aura flares from her hand as she reaches into the victim's subconscious. Leon tells her to reconstruct the memories of the attack so they can see what he saw. Beatrice closes her eyes, sorting through the survivor's fractured and traumatized thoughts. Leon asks for the most important detail, the name of the monster who did this. She finds it a knight named Geovric who crushed everything in his path with a warhammer. Leon's face goes stone cold the moment he hears the name, Majestic Geovric. Back on the trail, Beatrice asks if the victims were hunters, But Leon has a different feeling. He looks out over the scorched earth, seeing the signs of a systematic total annihilation. He admits he once used the same burning field tactics himself during his wars against orcs. Hadi looks a bit shaken by the cold, pragmatic way he talks about such brutality. Beatrice notices Leon is pushing the horses hard, clearly bothered by this ghost from his past. Leon catches himself and slows down, realizing he's letting his nerves get the best of him. They continue their trek across the ruins, the red sky casting a grim light over the team. He reveals that the culprit is a Grail Knight, a legend from his old world. He explains that Geovric was a saintly figure from centuries ago, blessed by the goddess herself. The story goes that he ascended to paradise 800 years ago, after a final crusade. Hadi is stunned by the idea of a legendary hero who literally went to heaven. The truth is, bro just died. But Leon knows better. Geovric's soul was never actually accepted into the afterlife. Beatrice listens as Leon explains how he tried to track the knight's energy, but found nothing but a void. He's got 3 theories about what happened to the fallen saint. Either Geovric is still alive through some dark means, or his soul simply lost its way. Beatrice's eyes go wide as Leon hits her with the final, most terrifying theory. He thinks the knight betrayed his oaths and changed sides, making him a threat beyond mortals. Leon vows they'll find the truth as they raid the gate, his grip tightening on the reins. They come across more execution grounds, a clear message left by the enemy. Leon's expression turns to one of pure, simmering disgust at the sight. He clenches his teeth, declaring that the ones responsible for this aren't just enemies, they're trash that needs to be erased. Hari looks at him with a smile, thinking that despite his weirdness, he's a truly righteous person. But Leon cuts her off with a grim warning. Do not trust your eyes and your minds. The other hunters cheer, ready to follow his lead into whatever fight is coming next. Leon's face hardens as he commands them to pick up the pace. Suddenly, a scene of absolute carnage unfolds right in front of them. A crazed warrior laughs manically as he hacks through defenseless people. Hadi points toward the village, shouting for them to save the villagers from the massacre. Leon's face goes dark, a terrifying look in his eyes as he stares down the slaughter. Leon's eyes glow with a lethal light as he calls out the scumbags responsible for the raid. He doesn't wait for a plan, charging ahead with a shout to save the people he sees under attack. Hadi watches him go, knowing his hatred for seeing the weak slaughtered has pushed him over the edge. The rest of the group is left in the dust as Leon's horse gallops at a speed they can't possibly match. This is the same berserker state he entered back when he was hunting orcs in his past life. He raises his weapon, looking less like a righteous king, and more like an avatar of destruction. An old man looks up in shock as a deafening roar echoes across the village. Leon closes the gap in seconds, a golden streak of lightning cutting across the landscape. He screams a war cry for the glory of the Lionheart, his face twisted into a mask of pure violence. Hadi looks on in horror, shouting for her king as the air around him seems to catch fire. But Leon just laughs with a demonic grin, swinging his blade and promising to kill everyone in sight.